Greetings, NFL fans. Welcome back to another installment, the fourth installment of Inside the Five, a UK NFL podcast. We are your hosts, Dan,
Nima,
Nathan,
and joining us this week is our very good friend, Yeah! Woo! Mario. All right. How you feeling, Mario? Feeling good?
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, good. If you could just lean a little forward for us. There we go. That'd be perfect. All right, okay, cool. So, episode 4, December we're in now. Literally the 2nd of December. We've had another month of football. A winless month for some. A month of joy for others. But yeah, certainly lots to talk about. Are we all feeling good, by the way? Are we all feeling, how's the season going for everybody? Feeling happy? Some better than others?
Chicago just had a bye week, so it's been lovely.
I am not feeling good about anything to do with my team, but the NFL is wonderful still.
you will hear from me soon enough.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, all I'll say is I certainly feel a lot calmer than I did in the last episode. I've got less to be annoyed about, and given that last Sunday we had a wonderful performance against the OBJ's LA Rams, I feel much calmer and much more chill for this episode. So are you ready to get stuck in with the content lines? Are we ready to go?
Yeah,
I'm down. Let's go.
Okay, so first segment, as always, we thought we'd return to some traditional vibes. We're going to go with best game, which I had to actually dig back for because I don't know why my brain just sort of was really lapsed of like brilliant games between now and the last episode. But I did manage to dig out a corker, so hopefully no one's done mine. Would anybody like to kick us off? Anybody feeling good about their game?
Yeah, I've got one. And it is your team, dear Daniel. It is
Good.
Packers versus Vikings. I thought
Mine
it
as
was
well.
a very, very good game. Mainly because both teams were like just offensively on point. Passing was amazing. I think both teams had over 400 yards passing and lots of big, exciting plays, multiple sacks. Justin Jefferson looked amazing, as did Devontae Adams, I'm pretty sure.
Tay.
But yeah, it was just it was a fun end to the game as well.
Yeah, that's my game too, actually. So I might as well weigh in
Yeah, 100%,
at this point. So I think Kirk Cousins is not getting the love. Obviously, they had a rough game last weekend, but not getting the love he deserves. I think now maybe potentially an argument for him in the MVP race.
I was thinking that, but
he's Kirk Cousins at the end of the day, and he plays for the Vikings, so they're not going to get as much love.
Yeah, I mean, PVC Kirk is going to struggle just because I think the thing is like, I agree, because I don't know where he's at specifically with the stats, but there was a point where he had 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So in terms of he certainly has the best touchdown to interception ratio, which is very impressive. But I guess he still hasn't performed in big games consistently. I know beating Green Bay, as much as I'm going to sound petty, go on, Nath, what's the stats?
The stats are he's currently got 23 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and he has 3,013 yards.
Yeah,
very good.
It's a good season. That's a good season. I don't know. I mean, like, it'd be interesting to see in terms of yards how far away he is from the top spot. Because I know Brady's got 30 touchdowns now, I think. So he's obviously he's down in touches. But then Aaron Rodgers wasn't actually like leading the touchdown race for most of last season, and it was his interception to touchdown ratio that everyone was going pretty nuts about. But yeah, I agree. Going back to your point here about Justin Jefferson, I feel like for me that game, obviously Green Bay lost, so I wasn't really that happy about it.
Yeah.
But there were injuries there where I was kind of fine to lose that game because obviously we just lost. Who did we just lose? I think Aaron Jones. He either got injured in that game or he'd missed
lost that
game.
O-lineman as well in that game.
Yeah, we lost. Yeah, we lost Elton Jenkins.
Yeah.
So that's obviously
him.
that's probably the biggest loss now because now he's done for the season. Bakhtiari, they just seem to keep kicking that fucking return down the road. So like whether we see him at all before the playoffs at this point, I think if the Rams game hadn't have happened, I would be more annoyed about that game than I am now. But yeah, I completely agree. Justin Jefferson, it's like I think that was the first time I've watched a full game with him in it, and considering how good, even though our defense is stripped, how good he looked and how easy he made running routes, splitting us fucking apart and stuff. Like it was really, really impressive. He's a talent.
He averaged 21 yards a catch.
Jesus, what was his stats for that game?
He had 8 receptions for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Monster game, yeah.
I mean, it's almost fair to say at this point in his sophomore year that he might be a top 3 receiver in the league.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, well, who would we? So who would you have over him? I guess is a better question. So it's like, I guess, and this sounds biased, I probably would take Devontae Adams, but potentially I would argue, I would understand if someone wouldn't, considering that he's 5 or 6 years younger than Devontae Adams. So it's like, he might not be there at his level yet, but like he's certainly not a world away. So there could be arguments that, like, given how much time you would get out of him and how cheap he would be, at least for 2 more years, like it's a pretty desirable player.
When you factor contracts into it, it's hard to pick against him. Yeah, you could probably say a similar thing for Jamar Chase as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, yeah, Jesus, what a player. We know Jamar Chase very well on this show, as we did not back him, and he heard that and then made us pay.
Sorry, Jamar.
He was a 9th round fantasy pickup for me, and he's the only thing keeping me in the playoff picture. So thanks, Jamar.
How did he fall to the 9th round?
Rookie.
Yeah.
That's the first time. I just thought about that. That's the first time that fantasy football has been mentioned on this NFL podcast. Which I don't know if, I guess for fantasy football fans that's annoying, but I don't follow fantasy football because I'm lazy. Is the main thing. I was going to say something else, but I did it 1 year for an ex-partner of mine when she was like, "Oh, my family are doing it and I don't want to do it, and you'd be really good at it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And then I just like picked the team and then just forgot about it every week until the end of the season.
That's me this season. I'm not keeping up at all.
I was just always like, "Oh, my fantasy."
Well, if I may talk about fantasy a little bit longer, I've actually had a very interesting ride this season because so I picked Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So at the beginning of the season was not good for me, and I gambled on a lot of. Rookie wide receivers and running backs because I felt more familiar with the draft class than the people I was playing against. So I basically swiped all of the 1st and 2nd round talents that I could, and it's taken a little bit of a while of them to get running. So I am currently 6-6 after starting 0-6.
Ooh, and very nice.
First week in the playoff picture.
Very nice.
Feeling
insane.
very pleased.
6 on the trot.
Yeah,
sounds very Belichickian.
That's a satisfying. You're like the fantasy whisperer kind of thing.
They are
also, my brother
6.
has won the last 2 years in a row, and there's no chance he's getting into the playoffs this year. He's ballsed it.
R.I.P. Harry.
Shout out to Harry there.
Honestly, for a man with a baby due any day, he could not be more upset about his fantasy season.
God, I forgot he had a baby due.
What is that?
His baby due.
My brother has a baby due.
DUI. Yeah, okay, I understand. Sorry, I part of me was like, we're gonna have to edit this bit out. I was just like, I just didn't get the joke at all. I was like, this is not looking good, this segment here, but that's my bad.
Mario, favorite game?
So this might be a bit of recency bias, but I'm going to go with the 49ers 34-26 victory over the Vikings. The reason why I chose this is because I think in a season where the public view of Kyle Shanahan has really changed, I think it was a really important game for him to just prove that he is still the best offensive play caller in the NFL. And his ability to employ the skill set of not only Elijah Mitchell, but any running back in his scheme. I just thought it was a really impressive display.
What's the receiver that they have? Is it Deebo Samuel?
And Brandon Ayuk.
Because it's like because I think Deebo Samuel's taken I think he was taking 6 or 7 snaps from the running back position in the last. I mean, I don't know if that was in that game, but certainly in the last 2 games, it's like he just keeps lining up at running back, and you would think that if that might work 1 or 2 times, but the fact that they can keep lining him up there, where it's surely it's obvious they're going to run it if he's in there, and he's still so effective from that position. It's pretty crazy.
You're a Shanahan fan.
I was questioning him along with a lot of other people, but at this point, I think he's a fantastic play caller, and I think he makes stars out of relative unknowns.
Well, you think about all the running backs that they've gone through, especially the last 2 seasons. They had Breeder and then Mostert, and then they're just so many people that you don't expect, and then suddenly just racking up so many yards, and it's he must be doing something right.
His ability to trick people is he's just it's not to be understated. It really isn't.
Yeah, his play design really is his best asset, and certainly in the run game. I don't know if I love his passing game stuff, because I think the main problem with the 49ers is and this is coming from a Packers fan who has watched the Shanahan method absolutely obliterate my team in big moments, is that if you can neutralize that run, I don't know what the plan B is. But although on the to counter that, like, what were they? What was the thing? They were like, they lost 4 or 5 games. They were like 1-5, and now they're 6-5.
Could you argue it's down to the quality of at quarterback?
Potentially, yeah. I'm not saying it's just, but I think it's. I would say that, like, obviously, I know it's hard to say with Trey Lance.
But he's not ready. I think Trey Lance, he doesn't look ready. He looks like he's got some talent, but I don't think he looks ready. Not the same sort of thing as like Justin Fields, where Justin Fields has actually had glimpses of like pure genius.
Well, this is the thing, is that neither of them really are ready, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
But the birth in terms of amateur experience is ridiculous. I mean, how many games did Trey Lance play in college? I think it was like 6 or something.
Yeah, and he's not played in 2 years or something like that. And he has had flashes, and certainly as we'll talk about in other segments. But I think. You could argue that maybe it's the quarterback play, but like I was thinking about this earlier, that like with so many teams coming up in the offseason who are going to be on the hunt for a quarterback, and it's pretty much decided. I think the 49ers even came out and said that like after this season they're going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo to make way for Trey Lance, as you would expect, taking him 3rd overall, which means that he's a quarterback that's going to be on the market, and provided that Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers don't move.
A lot of teams will be
exactly. I mean, depending on whether the world decides to forget Deshaun Watson or what he did, or whether that ever gets sorted out, we don't know. But like after him, I would say like I can't think of another quarterback that's going to be up on the market that I would take before I would take Jimmy Garoppolo, because we like as one dimensional as you could argue, he's been to a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Like he led them to a Super Bowl. He's won 3 as a backup to the Patriots, but he's been there.
And there's that record that the 49ers are more winning with him than without.
And Shanahan certainly is. Shanahan doesn't win without him.
And going back to Jimmy in the Super Bowl, 3/4 of that game, he outplayed Mahomes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
I've been thinking recently that there's a certain Pittsburgh Steelers that could benefit from a
Such a good shout.
Steelers.
Pittsburgh,
sorry. Pittsburgh Steelers. I was like, oh.
No, I'm not dissing them. That could benefit from a Jimmy G.
Yeah.
Certainly, if they can't get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson as well, like, because it's like their offensive line has been rebuilt. They've got a good running game. They've got good wide receivers. They've got good defense. So
I'd say, go on.
No.
I was going to say, at this point, I think he's got a better arm than Big Ben as well. Like, he keeps consistently underthrowing stuff this year, Big Ben.
Don't forget that the Browns might be looking for a quarterback as well, and they have a wicked team.
And people could take Baker Mayfield as well.
See Russell going to the Browns if he were to move, because everyone keeps going on that the move is more for Sierra than it is for us. Because
Sierra's got big things in her career coming. Sierra's career is really heating up, so I can understand why Russell would factor her
also
into his move.
With the Russell Wilson thing, I think I was listening to something about this earlier where they were breaking down his contract, and he has the highest cap hit this year at $32 million. He's also signed to Seattle through 2023 with a cap hit next year of $37 million. So now, whether that means he will or won't move, all I do know is it's like, for Seattle's sake anyway, if we're thinking from their perspective, like moving on from Russ right now would only actually, if he wants to leave, I'm not saying if he doesn't want to leave. If he was like, I want to leave, it sounds like whatever the team that he would move to give up space to get him, they would have to give you so much, obviously in picks, but also they have to clear cap, and it would make sense to trade cap space with Seattle to be like, if we're going to take $37 million, you might as well take a couple of young players.
I think we're in the top 10 next year for like most cap space as well, because we've obviously got to re-sign DK and stuff. But it's one of those things with Russ's deal. He's got a no trade clause anyway, so it's like he's only going to go to like either like New York or like Miami, or it's not going to be like LA now, because obviously they're set a quarterback on both teams. Like it's going to be like major network teams if he were to go. Like, so I don't know. I mean, Dallas was one of the names before, but obviously they're settled now at quarterback as well. So it's like it's only going to be somewhere that has a larger network than Seattle. So
I don't get the appeal of New York though. Like, outside of the media market thing, like their team's okay.
Well, the thing is, the thing is about it is as well. If you look at Seattle now as a team, it's like it's either Russ or Pete who's going to stay. Basically, I think but I don't think that Pete is going to stick around for a rebuild. Like, I just can't see it. He's 70. I don't know why you would just retire now. No one's going to forget this one losing season at the end of your career.
No, absolutely. And
you mean?
What did I say?
You said forget.
Sorry, I mean remember. Yeah, but like no one's going to forget your career. Yeah,
I will never forgive you.
I will never forgive you.
Defines your entire dynasty.
Yeah, no, I just think why not just like call it a day? Like it's obviously not working anymore, and it wasn't really working last year, and it was hiding a lot. Russ playing ridiculous last year, and then when he stopped playing ridiculous, the flaws of the team.
Or he could do what Bill Belichick did and relinquish some of his power and responsibilities.
Yeah,
doesn't seem to want to.
I just think maybe it's time. I don't think he's got the same football IQ as Belichick, though. Like,
I mean, no. I mean, who does?
Yeah, well, exactly. But like, I think it's just over. Basically, I think it's over, and it's fine that it's over. And you know, is like again, we've talked about this. It feels like Packers when they were at the end of Mike McCarthy's like thing. That's what it feels like. It's like no one like everyone wants to win, but no one has the same idea of how they want to win, and it just feels so mismanaged, basically, and it's just all over the place, and no one seems to know who's doing what, and everyone seems just really frustrated. So, yeah.
As a recap, Mario, you love Kyle Shanahan and the way he plays, and him beating the Vikings was your favourite game.
I hate the Vikings.
Yeah, me too. Segue aside, I'll quickly.
Sorry, Jordan.
I'll quickly blitz through mine. Although I do have to talk about the fourth quarter, mainly because it's the reason I chose this game. So my favourite game in the time between the last episode and this one was the Chargers versus the Steelers. Week 11, just quick stats on Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert was 30 of 41. He had 382 yards, 3 touchdowns, and had 1 interception. He also threw to 9 different targets, which for the stat lovers out there, people love hearing about that, how many different targets he threw to, how good of a quarterback he is with everybody. He also had 9 carries for 90 yards. So it really was a phenomenal game from Justin Herbert. The reason it was my favourite game is because in the fourth quarter, 41 points got scored, right? And if you will, I'll very quickly run through some. I've written down the highlights of the fourth quarter, the biggest moments in the fourth quarter, just to give you a little bit of perspective on what that fourth quarter looked like. So, with about 12 minutes to go, the Chargers were punting. Steelers blocked it to give themselves possession. Wait for it. Inside the 5, TM, and then they score to bring themselves within 1 score of the Chargers. They were a score down before that happened. On the Chargers' next drive, with under 5 minutes to go, Herbert got sacked to get a 3rd and 14. He then almost gets a first down, but he doesn't. He gets a 4th and 1. They're on their own 20.
Don't tell me they go for it.
Brandon Staley,
of course,
obviously loves it, goes for it. Doesn't get it.
Fails. Yeah. Fails.
Oh, sorry. No, hang on a minute. I've skipped a step. Before that, so block, punt, score. Chargers, Justin Herbert gets a pass tip, throws a pick to put the Steelers on the 15. They score again. On the next drive, Justin Herbert gets sacked. 4th and 1, decides to go for it on their own 20, doesn't get it, turns over, right? But this is where the game gets interesting. So the Steelers now have possession inside field goal range with 3 minutes and 45 seconds to go, right?
How far are they ahead?
They are. It's a tied game at this point.
Okay.
So, but now they've got under 4 minutes. They're inside. They're already in field goal range. It's for me. It's like run the ball, chew that clock. Worst case, you get 3 points. It's going to be hard to win, right? The Steelers only take 20 seconds off the clock on a 3 and out. Kick the ball back, right? And then on the next drive, Justin Herbert hits Mike Williams for a 52-yard touchdown bomb to make it 41-37 with 2 minutes and 9 seconds to go, right? And this is where Big Ben's season is kind of summed up for me. So for context, they're under a score down. So it's not a field goal, but it's not a touchdown. They've got 2 minutes and 9 seconds left, and they've got a timeout. So they've basically got 2 timeouts. Can anybody guess what the final drive looked like?
He got sacked 3 times.
He got sacked twice for an incompletion, and then got put in a 4th and 32 on his own 4-yard line, to which he tried to hit a screen pass and missed. And the game ended 41-37. But yeah, I rewatched the highlights and I was just like, God, that was a good game. And man, I just love the Chargers. I love Justin Herbert. I think he's so good. I just think their inconsistency is just born out of their defense, which I had to dig into again because, for all the Twitter people I've been speaking to in the last month who say we don't know ball, I'm just going to go into some stats here for you. They're fifth in offense, which obviously is really good. And considering that's Justin Herbert's, sophomore for second season? I can't remember what it is.
Yeah,
second season, to be a top 5 offense, I think is really impressive. They are, what are they in defense? I think they're 14th in total defense, which doesn't sound that bad. No. However, they are dead last in rushing defense, averaging 145 yards a game against them. So it's just no wonder they lose games. No wonder they lost to the Vikings. No wonder they lose to they
run out of time.
Yeah, and every good team that's got a good running game, of course, you're just gonna run the game out of it. What do they say about any good quarterback? Keep him off the field, make him a spectator. So, I think another good draft, or another good off season, because they obviously just paid for the O-line this year, which has paid off massively.
It was never going to be this season. It was always going to be Justin Herbert's amazing. They've now got a great O-line. They've got a great offense, really, if you think about it. And I think the reason why, Nima, you fucking hate the Chargers' offensive calls. You think it's way too, what's the opposite of conservative?
Ballsy.
Reckless.
Yeah, ballsy, reckless, yeah.
It's just fourth downs in your own half.
But you could argue, what does that say?
They trust their offense. But I swear one of the fourth downs, they ran the ball.
In their defense.
That's
exactly what it says to me.
Yeah.
They don't have much faith in their defense. So if they draft well in the next draft and get a decent pass rush and other things, then I reckon
that's a fair point. I think
you hit the nail on the head there as well, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Having rewatched the game, because I also watched the game in 40 because I really wanted to make sure that I understood exactly how that game played out. I think pass rush wise they're okay because they have Joey Bosa, but it's their linebacking core where I'm they haven't got any big names. But I completely agree that it was I was thinking with the Steelers, Brandon Staley must have been looking, being 4th and 1 on my own 20. I love going for it, but even so, if we kick the ball back, all they need to do is run the ball with Najee Harris. Good running game, a semi-decent O-line. We can't defend the run at all. They could shoot the whole game away and just get into bare minimum field goal range and then kick the winner. Whereas if we go for it now and we don't get it, worst case, they score. We just cover 0 for the next 4 plays. They get a touchdown. We put the ball back in our best player's hands, and that's exactly what they did.
Remember,
and he delivered.
The Pittsburgh's offense is terrible, apart from again Najee Harris. Ben Roethlisberger he's done.
He's falling apart.
Yeah, he's done.
I wouldn't even go as far as to say that their offense is terrible, though.
Well,
you talk about. I mean, Najee's going to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, no. I
Chase
don't
Claypool.
His stats that good this season?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
He's been Najee Harris has been really good.
When I say they're terrible, I mean obviously the offense revolves around the quarterback, and if you're not good at the quarterback position in your as a team, then generally the pieces. It doesn't matter how good the pieces are around you. You're not
just
going to be able to.
participating for the regular season.
So I think Ben's done. I think this is probably his last season. I mean, he might have to be forced out.
It's such a shame, to be honest with you, because as talking about the Seahawks and saying, no one's going to remember one bad season. I think people will remember Ben's
his decline,
fall from grace.
Yeah.
The thing is, right? He won his Super Bowls when he was young. I think he's the youngest. Was he the youngest Super Bowl winning quarterback?
He was at one point. Yeah.
So, at one point, his age forgave all his sort of off-season not wanting to put effort into being a quarterback. He's old now, or old for a quarterback, and your body isn't the same as when you're 22 or whatever.
Also, he didn't evolve. He relied on his physical traits. They've worn out.
He's a dinosaur.
So it's because apparently his pre-snap stuff is still that of someone like Mac Jones, where it's very limited in terms of what he can control and what he can change, because and that's on his request. He's I don't want to. Do you know how people talk about Brady, where it's he spends the whole 40 seconds being I'm going to change everything and then I'm going to do this and the other to just dink and dunk it. But
you look at the Peyton Manning whole style of offense, he controlled every. Sorry, excuse me. He controlled everything, and he's basically the offensive coordinator, and Ben is just a dinosaur at this point.
I mean, their playbook is that of a college offense at this point.
Who this? cornerback.
No, not.
All right, it's time for our new. Well, I say new. It's old now. I think it's just we've done it like 3 or 4 times, but it's time for Who's That Quarterback? A segment when we post. We'll have seen it on Friday. You won't know who it is yet. Maybe you will. Actually, no, you won't know who it is yet because I've only posted it on Friday. I posted the reveal on Monday. I already cocked that intro up there.
I actually don't know. I haven't seen the post.
No, because it's Thursday today, isn't it? Nima?
Yeah.
So for the listeners, they will see. They'll get their first taste of who it is on Friday. Then the show comes out Sunday. They can either find out right now or they can find out on Monday if they don't listen to the show. But I don't know why they would follow us if they don't listen to the show. Anyway, are you ready? This is a bit of a difficult one this week. I tried to sort of mix it up, or it's potentially difficult. I don't know. You have to see.
Go on.
So the stats I've gone with is you're only going to get completion percentage, and you're going to get completion percentage over 2 weeks. So in week 11, they had a completion percentage of 81.8%, and then in week 12, they had a completion percentage of 87.1%. Ladies and gentlemen, who is that quarterback, Mario?
Is it Mac Jones?
It is not.
Jacoby Brissett.
No, it is not. It is not Jacoby Brissett.
Is it Colt McCoy?
It's not, but that would have been funny.
Damn.
I'm actually so glad that no one got it. The correct answer was Tua Tagovailoa.
Come on!
I think he's like the first QB to have back-to-back weeks of 81% completion percentage since like Dan Marino or something like that, which is nice because he's on a 3-game winning streak. I feel like all the heat from sort of the Deshaun Watson chaos, we clearly just don't want this guy, and we're going to ruin his confidence mid-season by talking about it all the time.
Weird.
I really lost a lot of respect for the Dolphins, like through that whole thing, like because I love Dan Marino, I love like Ace Ventura.
Because I guess like
I
it could also have just been like hot air though as well. Like stories come out and they just get like.
But I always think with hot air though, because it's like. So, like a really recent example was the Matt Nagy is going to be fired after Thanksgiving game, and it's like I heard that and I was like, oh, that's kind of nuts that they're going to make him play a game, and then it was like the Bears came out and were like, that's not what's happening. Like we're obviously not going to tell someone that they're fired in 4 days' time, and could they also please coach this team to another game? They're not going to do that, and I think the Dolphins certainly could have made a much bigger effort to. To quash all those rumors if they weren't true. Yeah. And also, let's be honest, all the stuff about the offers and stuff like that, that will have been leaked by Deshaun Watson's agents because they will have wanted people to know that people were investing in him. So they're not going to say something. They probably can't make up something about like a trade agreement if it's not on the table.
Yeah.
So Miami never disproved those or denounced them. So they clearly did want him, and they clearly don't want to. But I'm just really happy that he's on a 3-game winning streak, although it's easier now because their playoff hopes are probably done, you know what I mean?
Also, maybe it's just a case of him finally having something really to play for. He feels himself on the hot seat and it's bringing something out of him.
Yeah, and to be honest, I actually also I went 1 game further to sort of look at his stats, and I collated all of his stats over 3 games, and his completion percentage over the 3 games is 82%. He had 661 yards and 3 touchdowns. Obviously, that's 1 touchdown a game, but like in a Dolphins team that's been bad all year, and he's been kind of bad all year, it's kind of nice to see him at least. People are bigging up Mac Jones for being reliable and being consistent, and it's like I wonder if you subbed out Mac Jones and put Tua in that Patriots team, would people not be going, man, this Tua guy's reliable?
Well, I was literally about to say the same thing. I was going to be like, there was that rumor, wasn't it, before that draft that Tua's in a joke that the Patriots were potentially going to trade up to try and get Tua, and looking at how Mac Jones is playing for that Patriots team now. You could argue that Tua would be actually quite good for a good player for like Bill Belichick because he is a leader. Obviously, he's got that like leadership trait. Even though they didn't give him the captain thing, like a lot of people said that. Yeah, even though they didn't give him that, but like a lot of people said in the locker room, he's like got that sort of vibe. I think he could be a really good. I hate the term system quarterback because it's like, but you know what I mean, where he plays for the team. And it's not about his individual stats per game. And like he's not like Mahomes or like whoever, like throwing like 500 yards for 5 touchdowns or whatever. He'll play to win. And you could argue that's one of the best traits you can have as a quarterback is that they're so selfless that all they care about is winning.
But what you're saying is Tua, not Mac, is the next Brady.
Well, their stats basically mirror each other this season so far in terms of like, is it completions and like and all those kind of things. And obviously, like, you know, they're different. They are different kinds of players. Like their skill sets are different and different teams.
Periods of their career.
But like, if someone like Tua isn't wanted by the Dolphins, then I'm sure someone will pick him up.
Yeah,
and,
well, we literally just said the same thing, didn't we? We said Jimmy G is going to be will be a high value ticket in a quarterback hungry market. So if the Dolphins bail on Tua, I wouldn't be surprised to see another team just be like, yeah, we'll snap him up.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we'll just not shatter his confidence 3 days before the season starts, and we'll see how he does that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, how can you know how good he's going to be? You know, it probably took him 6 games to bounce back from the preseason being like, yeah, we already don't want this guy as our guy. Do you know what I mean?
This is his first proper season since his hip injury. He came in halfway, 3/4 of the way through,
and then they benched him, and like, you know, and also I think certainly Brian Flores or whoever's in charge of how they're starting people and stuff like that, you know, certainly needs to have a conversation had with them about that, because it's like, that is not how you handle a rookie quarterback. Like, you know, as good as they can be, like even Mac Jones, it's like the Patriots were definitive in the preseason. You know, they watched him, they liked him, they decided he was going to start over Cam, and then not only that, they cut Cam at the first excuse they could get to be like, this guy's gone now. Like, you know, we don't know if you're going to be the guy, but you're going to we're going to treat you like you're the guy, and then we'll see how you do.
How long is left on Ryan Tannehill's contract at the Titans? Because
that is a good question. I have no idea.
I think that Tua could be a good shout for the Titans, because same sort of vibe, like very like Belichickian, like, or Belichickian or whatever.
Yeah. You say that, but the Titans' biggest weakness at the moment is they don't really have that over the top game, and I don't see them getting it from Tua.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe Denver.
That is a loaded roster.
Ryan Tannehill's contract, he plays through the 2023 season.
Yeah, he got his big contract last year, didn't he?
Yeah, in 2020.
It was like 118 million. I remember that.
That was exactly 118 million.
Bang.
That was perfect.
I don't know why, when you were like, when did he get his contract? I just completely blanked. And then as soon as you said it's signed through 2023, just all the information that I needed came back. But yeah, anyway, that was Who's That Quarterback. Sorry, boys, for you didn't get it right today. But I hope you leave happy with the fact that Tua is, in my opinion, becoming a rising star again, which I think is nice. And also Jalen Waddle as well. He's like, he's close to breaking some record of some kind, which is
another fantasy pickup of mine.
Exactly, yeah.
The thing is as well, like, do you remember seeing Jalen Waddle's face when he got drafted? Like, you could see he was disappointed.
Well, apparently that wasn't. So I read an interview. Like, I looked at it further recently, and he dismissed that completely in terms of. Well, no, because I was interested as well. I thought the same.
That being said, there was a report that he said when he was asked about Tua and Mac, who was the better quarterback, he said Mac any day.
Yeah.
But in fairness, Mac, I mean, again, much better situation, but Mac, you know, as much as I like to say they are similar, like, I'm still a big believer that, like, you've got to do it. You still have to prove you can do it, whether you're in a system or not, you're in a favorable position or not. You still have to deliver. And Mac Jones has done nothing but, certainly in the last 6 or 7 games, because like he's gone from, because his big criticism was like, oh yeah, it's really easy to say Mac Jones is really good when he's throwing 119 a game and 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Whereas like, I'm pretty sure the last game he threw for 300 yards and like 2 touchdowns. And when they beat the Browns, he threw for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they took him off before the last quarter. So
he's been great.
Yeah, he really has been good.
But I was just going to say he's not received anywhere near as much heat as Tua has.
Yeah, well, this is going back to this, like, the Patriots handled it better.
It's easy to play well when, you know, your team backs you.
Yeah. They're on a 6-game winning streak.
Yeah. Another thing I'd say about Mac Jones is this lack of athleticism thing is massively overplayed. I wouldn't say he's that much less athletic than even a Baker.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so either.
He is less, but not by that much in my view.
I mean, it was just that picture, though, wasn't it? It's the picture of him with the sort of beer belly and the cigar, and people are like, "You are not athletic at all." And it's like, well, in fairness, he had just won a national championship, so like. But
then also, if he's got the brain to play the game, he'll do what's necessary to play the game in the way that he feels he needs to play the game to win. It doesn't matter. The only reason that more athletic quarterbacks win is because most of the time when they have to run, apart from like, say, Lamar Jackson, where like the running is part of the game, most of the time when quarterbacks are running for their lives athletically, it's because a play's broken down anyway.
It's because something's gone wrong.
Yeah. So like, you could argue if he's playing the way he is and they're winning games because he's doing things right. They're calling the right plays. He's understanding the plays. He's understanding the field in front of him, and he knows what play to do, which, you know, is that I would argue more important than being athletically gifted is as a quarterback.
And the three winningest teams of the 20th century are New England, Green Bay, and Seattle. Now, admittedly, Green Bay and Seattle do have a superstar at quarterback, but so Green Bay doesn't technically count. But the New England is exactly what you're talking about, where it's all about the play and it's all about like playing the game, not having the right pieces. And as much as Russell Wilson is dynamic, I would say that Seattle certainly have a much more traditional approach to their style of play. They stick to their style of play. So there's a lot of
run, pass.
There's a lot of arguments made that like
action.
two of the three winningest teams of the 20th century have won by design, not by these flashes of brilliance.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can move on. So. All right, so I thought, seeing as we finally have a resident Bears fan on, and we've spoken a lot about the Bears, but we don't know as much about the Bears as perhaps we should have. Thought it'd be nice to have a segment dedicated to them, a segment that I'm dubbing the Bare Necessities with Deep Dish Mario, which unfortunately was going to have a really cool like Dixieland jingle with it, but I just didn't have the time. Perhaps next time. But I've got a couple of questions, and I'm sure you have a lot to say about the Bears, and I'm sure everyone has their own thing. The thing I want to start with, Deep Dish Mario, is just we all love Justin Fields. I think a lot of people are excited about him, but as a Bears fan, after a couple of years of Mitch Trubisky and all the stuff you've gone through, how does it feel to watch Justin Fields? How do you actually feel about him?
Well, it's an interesting thing because I feel like the public perception of Justin Fields, and certainly the public perception of the Bears, is that people are watching a chip pan fire. The stats have not been good, but I feel like within the Chicago Bears community and the feedback that is coming from the Bears insiders, like people are excited. And if you watch every game and every play matters to you, as it does when you support a particular franchise, you do see these flashes. They're not going to necessarily make it through to stat sheets, but as far as I can see, in the midst of all of that dysfunction, it looks like he can really play. And the O-line sucks. And Matt Nagy sucks. and we finally get a star running back, and then he's injured. And it's just
cruel. Which also will be down to O-line. The injury will down to O-line because he's taking more hits.
Have you got Jermaine Ifedi in your
I don't think he's even playing.
He's awful, man.
He was alright, guys.
He's so awful.
For a while.
I think we drafted him like the second round as well. We just don't draft O-line well.
I mean, by the time the season started, I think the Bears were down to their third or fourth left tackle.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, it's a real mess.
So clearly you guys need O-line. Next year's draft is touted to be very like interior offensive line heavy. Well, what are your picks saying? Do you have a first round pick for next year, or did you give,
we traded it to New York for Justin Fields?
What are the rest of your picks looking like?
That was worth it, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean 100%.
Any day. Twice on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
5 times on Sundays. No, you say we need O-line. I mean, we drafted Tevin Jenkins highly. He just got injured before the season started. We've not seen him play.
Still.
Yeah.
He had a big injury. It was
part of me was just sort of like, I don't know if they were just like not going to play him, or they were just like chucking him in to be like, please do something, like save him, please.
So he's not played an NFL game yet. Everyone was saying when we I mean, I was so gassed when we drafted him. I was so excited. You can remember me on the group chat. I was losing my mind. We managed to trade up a few spots and get him in the second round when everyone was saying he was a first round talent. And it's like, oh, okay, why did he fall? Oh, okay, maybe it's because he's got this massive back problem that he now had to have back surgery for, and he's not played a single game. But in the 5th round, we drafted Larry Borum, whose sister, if I'm correct, is actually Tevin Jenkins's girlfriend.
Nice.
So there's a connection there.
Don't say we don't do our research, folks.
Larry Borum got injured early and has been playing again these last few games. For a 5th rounder, he looks great. He's really showing his quality, and I think there's something there. But as is always the case with O-lines, if you don't have the same players playing in, week out, you're going to stink.
I have a lot. Yes, I agree completely with that.
You guys know fucking nothing about terrible O-lines.
Honestly, one thing I will say is, out of all of this O-line chaos, our O-line coach gets in contact with soon-to-be Hall of Fame left tackle Jason Peters, who was fishing on a boat, and his official response to being asked if he'd come and play for Chicago for the season was, "Oh no."
Oh my God.
Coming in, myself and any Bears fan I spoke to thought this guy might not finish entire games, let alone stretches of games. Oh my God, he's been amazing.
Oh, he actually came.
He's playing.
Oh, okay.
He's on the team. He's the only thing we've got on offense right now.
Where is he? Is he a left tackle, right
left tackle?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So it's a pretty pivotal position. So,
yeah.
If I may, actually, so while we're on the subject of certainly your O-line and stuff like that, I'm just going to quickly brief you. So I was really interested to see, one, how Justin Fields is stacking up against the other rookies stat-wise. So I've sort of compiled his season stats, and also where he ranks against the other top quarterbacks drafted in this year's draft. And then not only that, I've gone into sort of extra detail with extra stats for the real stat monsters out there, just in case they don't feel like we know ball.
You really took that one personally, didn't you?
Yeah, and also it's because it was about Tom Brady, and I was just sort of like, you know what, like I get the whole people love Brady too much and they give him too much credit, but it's like at no point have I ever given him too much credit. And I don't not know ball, all right, and I'm going to prove that for you right now. So Justin Fields, I won't go through like the actual specific numbers, but I've got his passing yards, I've got his touchdowns, I've got his interceptions, his rushing yards, his rushing touchdowns, and his passer rating, and then also how he ranks compared to Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence. Did I not put him there? Trevor Lawrence. So he's third in yards, third in touchdowns. He has 8 interceptions, which is the same as Mac Jones, but he's only played 5 games and Mac Jones has played 12. So, but it's a much worse team. So that's neither here nor there for me. I don't feel too bad about that stat. The one that is really good is he's first in rushing yards, and he's first by a country mile. Trevor Lawrence was second with 192. Justin Fields has 311 rushing yards, so that dude is running, and he's
running for his life.
Running for his life, yeah. And he's also tied first.
What direction are those yards in?
Well, don't.
Oh, that one game. Oh, he had he finished with 2 yards or something. What was it?
It was negative. No, he finished with 1 yard because he threw for 67 yards, but got sacked for 66 yards, something like that. And then the final stat is his passer rating is a 69, but which is 4th, but Trey Lance is 3rd. So it's sort of, for me, I'm like, that's 3rd because Trey Lance has played a full game and then 2 half games, right? So for me, that feels like he stacks up. He's first in a couple of categories. He's 3rd in yards, but again,
rookies,
yeah.
right?
But again, the only 2 people that are ahead of him are Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones, both of whom have played 11 and 12 games. So the fact that he's only he's 1,000 yards behind them, but he also has 7 or 8 games less. Where these stats get interesting is when you look at something called adjusted net yards per attempt.
Oh, I know this one.
For everyone, because this stat is for all those stat people who are like, it's actually it's the most indicative way to value a quarterback. So I've done it. And for any listener who doesn't know what that means, an adjusted net yards per attempt stat is based on it's a number that's based on 5 different statistics rather than just passing yards and how many yards do you get per attempt. This factors in passing yards, passing touchdowns, interceptions thrown, time sacked, and yards lost to being sacked. So it sort of factors in, how much are they contributing to the game and how much do they take away from the game through mistakes, right?
Heavy stat.
And I thought this is actually, to be fair, it is really indicative of Justin Fields, to be fair to all the stat machines out there, because Justin Fields has a 4.98 adjusted net yards per attempt. And if you consider people talking about how good Trevor Lawrence is and how good he's been in a terrible team, and as much as I know the Jags, I would say they are a worse team than the Bears as a whole. His adjusted net yards per attempt is 4.74. So, to say that Justin Fields has only played 5 games, he doesn't seem like he's that hot. He's certainly competing with Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence was taken number 1 overall. You know what I mean? Justin Fields, before the draft, everyone was like, is he that good? I don't know if he's that good. Maybe he's not, you know what I mean? He fell 10 places, do you know what I mean? So
the people who really knew were saying that if Trevor Lawrence wasn't in this draft, Justin Fields would be the number 1.
Yeah.
If it was in any other draft, Justin Fields would have been number 1 quarterback taken.
And also, just so I can finish this point before I forget, the only reason I think the adjusted net yards per attempt is so interesting for Justin Fields, because again, just to quickly read them all out, so Justin Fields is 4.98, Zach Wilson's is 4.9, Trey Lance's is 6.8, but again, he's played about an hour and a half of football. Trevor Lawrence is 4.74, and then Mac Jones is 6.53, which is pretty nuts because he's played 12 games.
Crazy.
However, just to recap, that stat factors in passing yards, passing touchdowns, interception throws, time sacked, and yards lost to being sacked, right? With the last one being the one I want you to really think about. So not only have I got adjusted net yards per attempt, I've also looked at how many yards each quarterback has lost due to being sacked, right? So this was really interesting for a number of reasons, just because some surprised me and some didn't. So where's Zach Wilson? I'll do him first. So Zach Wilson has played 7 games. He's been sacked 23 times for a total of 196 yards lost. Okay. Mac Jones has played. Mac Jones has played 12 games, 24 sacks for 204 yards lost. Now, obviously, that seems like a lot, but he's played 12 games. That's 5 more than Zach Wilson has played. So to consider he's only been sacked like for 8 more yards, that shows how much better the other man is. This one really surprised me. Trevor Lawrence. How many times has he been sacked for how many yards?
18.
For how many yards?
120.
That's annoying. That was weirdly accurate. It was 20 for 117, which again, like I don't know why I had it in my head that like the Jags are 2-9. I assumed the O-line was going to be bad, but just to recap, 20 for 117 yards. Trevor Lawrence in a 2-9 team, and he's played 11 games. Justin Fields, ladies and gentlemen, has played 5 games. He has been sacked 31 times for a total of 220 yards lost. So he's been sacked 16 more yards than Mac Jones, has played like 7 more games than him.
So what you're saying is Trevor Lawrence has a better O-line
than the Bears.
And he is a worse
adjusted. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's it. He has a worse adjusted net yard attempt. So for me, that's me. As soon as I put that together, I was like, you know what? Like, that's actually really interesting because it's like, you can say what you want about the Jags team not being great. He's been sacked for nearly 100 yards less, and he's played 6 more games. And, and also his touchdowns, he's thrown like maybe 4 more touchdowns than Justin Fields, and he's thrown 1 more pick. So it's like, I love Trevor Lawrence. I think he's amazing. This is not a Trevor Lawrence isn't as good as everyone says it. It's more of a Justin Fields is actually a lot better than people
giving him credit
for, especially behind this O-line. So like, I really didn't. I knew it was bad, but now crunching the numbers, it's like
deep dish Mario.
Astronomical at the difference.
Does that make you hyped? Does it get you hyped?
I mean, I've been hyped this entire season. The only concern I have had for Justin Fields this season was one that I saw in his college tape as well. You can get away with it a little bit more. He holds onto the ball a little bit too long. And if you hold on to the ball too long, you're going to be responsible for some of the sacks. But when you're dealing with the play calls that he's been dealing with, the nonsense he's been trying to make sense of, sometimes you're going to try and make something out of nothing. Sometimes you're going to wait a little bit longer and try and find somewhere to go. And these stats are indicative of a great deal, but they only mean so much when you take into consideration that every single time they have allowed him to push the ball downfield, he has demonstrated fantastic accuracy. And there's something there, and I think it's okay as a Bears fan to be excited about it. I wouldn't trade him for any of the other quarterbers.
The final thing on that point before I segue into the next thing, because it was interesting that you said that, is that he also has the longest touchdown pass out of all the rookie quarterbers, which I didn't include. It was like 67 yards.
Man's got an arm.
But what I thought was interesting there, where you were talking
Fair weather.
Exactly, and in Chicago. What I thought was interesting there, where you were talking about what he's had to deal with as a quarterback in terms of the scheming and the play calls and stuff like that, which leads into my next question and the final question of this segment. Nicely, who do you feel is more responsible for the situation that the Bears are in right now? And I guess I can extend that question further to, who would you rather see go, Ryan Pace or Matt Nagy, or both? Do you think they both should go at the end of this season?
Would you like me to start by answering that question?
Yes.
If it had to be one of them, despite the certain things I do like about him, I would fire Nagy. I think Nagy has some redeeming qualities. His teams have invariably shown a tenacity to stay in the game when other teams in similar circumstances would give up. He's never lost the locker room, despite recent reports, as far as I can see. But I have never, in my short life seen such pathetic play calling. And as much as I think he is a proficient and capable leader of men, I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking, what are you doing here? I think there are better options.
Yeah.
I just think he's not the guy. And I'm not saying that every head coach has to call plays for, the side of the ball that you're affiliated with. You
could argue that it would be better if they didn't, because they could manage the game better.
Absolutely. And I think, Matt Nagy is someone who has relinquished play calling and things have got better a bit. But he's just not the guy as far as I can see. I mean, there's blood on Pace's hands as well. He's got a lot to answer for. I think his job is more secure. When he came in from the Saints organisation some years ago, he actually took on quite a big challenge. The Bears organisation were very much living in the past, and Pace is the guy that is responsible for the fantastic facilities that now exist in Hallis Hall. He overturned nutrition, he overturned strength and conditioning, and as much as I have certain issues with the way he goes about roster, he created one hell of a defense in 2018.
Absolutely.
After a real drought, Bears have historically been known for having good defenses. The 10 years prior to 2018 are not included in that.
I mean, the last good defense you had before that year was the Super Bowl year with Brian Urlacher, and it was when you had Devin Hester, and it was a dominant front seven, very similar to Pittsburgh's current defense, not in terms of the style of play, but I just remember the Bears having a really immense front seven.
I think with Ryan Pace, because he does have some qualities. I think Ryan Pace, if you're judging him exclusively on his ability to find value late in the draft, to see raw talent, I think he might be top 5, top 10 GMs in the league. Everything else, he's not good enough. And his biggest issue, if you look at our cap distribution over the last few years, it's just been a mess. I mean, to quote a certain Colin Cowherd, we're the only team that don't pay a quarterback and have no money.
Yeah, that's so true.
60% or whatever it is. I mean, I'm guessing at this point of our cap goes to outside linebackers.
And old outside linebackers who are more injury prone than they once were.
The offense is anemic, and as much as I'm sitting here and saying that Matt Nagy's not good enough, and I believe that to be true, it's not got a great deal to work with.
And what he did have got injured.
Yeah.
And in fairness, I think if nothing else, actually that was really interesting. Thank you for that, Mary, because I didn't know how much he had done behind the scenes in terms of nutrition and all the facilities and stuff like that. That really, and I obviously, because I don't follow the Bears, I don't know how long he's been there. So the fact that he's built that defense and all that stuff, certainly in my mind, as a CEO, whoever decides who gets fired from the GM position, that will be enough to probably keep his job. But failing all of that, he nailed the draft.
He made the play for Fields.
He nailed the draft
O-line.
because we were all the whole way before that draft were like, are Chicago going to do it? How are they going to do it? Because you were 18th. It's not like you had that valuable a pick to give away. So move up 8 spots at the right time. Do you know what I mean? It just felt like it was right there that it was like, especially, and also I think just a little bit of magic, because obviously Dallas would have taken a corner 100% at 10 had you not. Was it New York? I can't remember who they traded with, but anyway,
we traded back with the Eagles.
You traded back with the Eagles,
so they could get
Chicago
Devonta
traded
Smith.
with New York, right?
Yeah,
to move up.
Okay, and they were 11th, right?
Yeah.
So it was just sort of like, he had that thing where it was like the Broncos and the Panthers took a cornerback, which meant the Dallas were like, oh, screw this. Eagles were like, well, let's swap picks. We want Devonta Smith. Took Devonta Smith, and then obviously you were going to take a quarterback.
We're going to take Devonta Smith.
Giants were probably going to take a wide receiver there. Now they can't do that, and then Chicago go, well, we'll give you the 18th in the future first if we can get that pick, and then you take just,
Was it literally just one extra pick?
No, there are some later, more insignificant picks in that package.
But first rounders, it was literally your
It was one first rounder.
That a bargain or what?
I think it's a bargain.
Well, it's 2 technically, isn't it? Because it was your first
and then next
for that year and
That's
your first
insane.
next year as well.
Like, considering what it took San Fran to trade up, I know arguably they went up to 4, or 3 or
No,
whatever.
they went up to 2, didn't they?
I guess.
Oh no, they
No,
went to
it's
3.
three.
Sorry,
Three.
sorry, my
Second.
apologies.
Like they gave away like 3 first round. I mean, yeah.
Also,
and extra on top of that.
I bet New York are going, do you know what we should have done? Kept that pick and drafted Justin Fields. Because Daniel Jones isn't, he's struggling still. Do you know what I mean?
He's not the guy. He's not the guy.
All I'm hearing in the news now is, New York are prepared to make, one of the biggest deals of all time in a trade for Russell Wilson.
Well, this is why I'm confused by that rumor. Even if it were to happen, why would Russ go to an organization who still haven't been able to sort their O-line after 3 drafts?
Yeah, and their O-line is terrible.
It's bad
It is
considering they've spent multiple first and second round picks.
Basically ruined Saquon Barkley's career because your O-line's so bad.
Yeah, Andrew Thomas was like, they picked him, I remember 4th, ahead of whoever the Bucks picked up, because Bucks picked up Tristan Wirfs, but the Giants had an earlier pick and they picked up Andrew Thomas. And everyone was like, "What the hell's going on?" Like,
You're talking about the
the one
draft?
before,
Yeah,
not
the
the draft before.
I mean,
Okay.
Tristan Wirfs is probably the best right
So
tackle in the league right now.
Yeah, 100%.
He's pretty insane.
He's so good. Anyway,
But yeah, we should probably move on to save time. But that was a nice segment. Thank you very much, Mario. You really know your stuff about the Bears. We'll have to have you back on to talk about future Bears.
Thank you very
news.
much. It's been a pleasure.
I can't stand it. They make me sick. It's the worst defense in team history. How about them Cowboys?
welcome to a slightly more morose and somber Cowboy Corner this month. How about them Cowboys?
In everybody else's defense, it's been overdue. You heard the jingle we wrote for it. Do you know what I mean? I thought this was going to be how it was every time we did this episode. but
Honestly, can you understand why I had my reservations about being all in on this season? Like, I was delaying hope and delaying expectation to the last possible second, and as soon as I switched it on, I was disappointed by my team. My
You switched
boys.
that one in the last podcast as well. That's what's so funny.
It was
It's
literally the last podcast.
This game
but
is a cruel mistress.
and then you only won once in all of November.
to encapsulate how I feel, I'm pissed off. I'm just pissed off. I'm pissed for multiple reasons.
Is one of them that Dak Prescott's
No,
not worth his
primarily-
contract?
I would say that's not the case.
Oh, it is.
I primarily the first of all, CeeDee Lamb. No, not CeeDee Lamb. Sorry, Amari Cooper and his. Again, nothing against anyone who doesn't wish to take the vaccine, but if you are going to be unvaccinated, do not bring that pestilence upon my Cowboys. Like,
Could you not argue though that like it goes back to what Mario said? Dak isn't worth his contract because it shouldn't matter. You still have Gallup and CD.
So I've got some
And Cedric Wilson.
I had a big old dig deep. I'll get to that in a moment, but to start with the whole COVID thing, it's spread to like 8-9 different individuals. We've got 2 players now out, plus 5 backroom staff members. Mike McCarthy's out.
So it's an important thing to address because again, it's nothing to do with the vaccination status thing and an opinion on that.
Purely
It's just
team
that, like,
effect,
this is the reality of it. It's just once COVID gets, as Mike McCarthy said literally today, he was like, once it gets in the building, it's like it just spreads now, and it's just and now you're just learning people, you're just losing people every day now.
Exactly, and like at the point where he went out, I would say not injured, but on the COVID list, we had a few issues on O-line that I think we were just about overcoming because we had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and Gallup coming back and Cedric Wilson performing out of his socks, for a 3rd, 4th year sort of low, draft round pick. But it's, that's primarily like the biggest sort of gripe I have. But it has also been clear that without Amari Cooper and without CeeDee Lamb, who unfortunately was knocked out with concussion, just Dak, minus any sort of semblance of decent O-line, just can't really compete the same way other top tier QBs can. Like,
Would you like some stats to back up what you've just said?
I think I've got some stats as well, but you go ahead first.
No, please let me hear your stats because
His first 5 games. So this is with a decent O-line and all wide receivers, 75% completion, 273 yards per game on average, and a QBR 53.4, just above average. His second 5 games, 65.9% completion percentage, which is 10% less. Weirdly, he's got more yards in his last 5 games, of which we've lost 3.
I also noticed that.
But that, I think, is kind of, there's an outlier there, which is the Patriots game, where he kind of threw for 450.
And the Falcons game. The Falcons blowout is in your last 5 games, which really screwed up my stats.
Yeah, and his QBR was 34.5 even. And I just think he, obviously, on average, he performed more poorly in the last 5. But I think it was clear that without top receivers and the O-line that we had, he just had no time to throw to players who were less often free or as available as those top receivers could be. Like, I think against the Chiefs, he was sacked 5 times, hurried 15 times. Not so much against the Raiders. That's a different game. I would say that I think he just didn't do well enough in that game, at least early on. And yeah, his third down percentages have also been low in the 3 games we lost out of the last 4.
So it's interesting you say that, because I was really interested to sort of look at the Cowboys, because obviously
those adjusted yards.
Oh baby, did I just have I crunched some numbers for y'all?
So like Mario's right in his first.
I was really interested because I think this whole season, Dallas have surprised everybody, and they've been like, people talking about them being, top tier Super Bowl contenders. They're certainly going to make the playoffs, mainly due to their division, but also, to how good they've been. Dak. I mean, as much as people can say Dak is up and down, like he had looked really good in my opinion, and your offense was really firing, and also your defense was really good. But there was also that rumor that it was like, with Dan Quinn, it's like, are they good or are they not good, or are they are they just opportunistic? And I was trying to think, like, of all those things that were just working in harmony, what has changed in the last 4 games that has meant that that harmony has now been disrupted. So yeah. I've looked into it. So what I have for you here before I read all of it out is I have stats for your defense and offense for the last 4 games you played. Yep. And then I also have stats for your defense and offense for the previous 4 games that you played, because there's a nice amount of symmetry there, because the last 4 games you were 1-3 and the previous 4 games you were 4-0. So it was sort of like you were on fire, and then something has changed in those last 4 games.
I know what conclusion you're going to get to.
So your last, I'll do the previous 4 games. So not the 4 games you've been 1-3. The 4 games before that where you were 4-0. So on defense, you allowed. This is a cumulative, by the way. I've tallied up the stats I've gone for: total points allowed, total yards allowed, and then I've done third down percentage. The points allowed and the yards allowed is a collective total over those 4 games, and then I've done the individual third down percentages just because I wanted to keep that separate, so I could see if there was a noticeable dip or whatever. Yep. So in those 4 games, you allowed 93 points, you allowed 1,732 yards. And then your third down percentage was 50%, 23%, 30%, and 30%.
The yards passing and rushing combined.
That's how many yards your defense is letting through. Period.
Yeah.
And then your offense, you were scoring 135 points across those 4 games. You had 1,934 yards, and then your third down percentage was 33%, 57%, 33%, and then there was an outlier of 7%. That was the game where Cooper Rush, is it Cooper Rush, your backup QB?
Yeah.
Again, where you won the Vikings, which, to be fair, as a side note, how the hell did you win a game where you only converted 7% of your third downs? That really blew my mind that had happened. So as I collated this information, I was thinking, well, I wonder, like, because part of me was like, maybe your defense has just not been as good as, or maybe there's some of the airs come out of that. But actually, what's weird is that, so just to reiterate, 93 points and 1,700 yards. That's what your defense had conceded points and yards wise in the 4 games where you were 4-0. Yeah. When you were flying high, everyone was loving Dallas. Yeah. The last 4 games, how many points have you allowed? 88. How many yards have you allowed? 1,500.
100 less yards.
Yeah, and your third down percentage is better. It's 23%, 33%, 0%, which obviously is the Falcons game, and then 53%. So your defense, even though you're on a 1-3 streak as opposed to 4-0, is better than it was playing better than it was before. The difference really is offense.
Rushing.
It was 101 points. It was a drop of 34 points. You're also 300 yards less. Your third down percentage was the same, but this is the offense again. Because once I'd done that, I was like, I now don't feel like I know a lot about the offense. This is all making sense. Am I going through this too quickly?
Absolutely. I was just wincing because of the reality of that they bear.
So with the offense, I was like, okay, so the drop in points and yards is an obvious given of, but I was like, okay, well, why? Why are we losing points? Go on. What was your thought?
Rushing, we are not running the ball enough. We've literally run the ball less than 20 times in all 4 games that we've played in our last 4 games. Just 20 attempts or less.
Which would make sense because what I have here as a stat is I've got Zeke's rushing yards in those 8 games. So in the 4-0 games, 143 yards, 110 yards, 69 yards, 50 yards. In the 4 games where you're 1-3, 51 yards, 41 yards, 32 yards, 25 yards, and that's in order. So that's from the oldest to most recent in that 4-game stretch.
And I would say, like, Zeke is not the running back. He started off the season like brilliantly well, like considering everyone thought he was done. He is not the best running back at the Dallas Cowboys right now, but he's not being. We're not handing the ball off enough. We're just not doing it. We need to run the ball more. We're lagging on time of possession as well in every single game, I think, by at least 3 minutes or more. Yes.
So would you say that the key to the offense is in Tony Pollard's hands then?
Yes.
Currently, I mean, in fairness, I will say that Zeke is battling an injury, and it's evident.
Yeah,
you only have to look at the fact that his yards have gone down. His best rushing game in the last 4 games was 50 yards, and it's gone down by 10 yards every game since.
Yeah,
he's battling an injury. He's trying to carry through.
Yeah.
Also, I think with the O-line injuries is obviously important to consider with that, because you say if the O-line's not up to scratch and you're rotating pieces.
Lyle Collins is out. Tyron Smith is in and out.
Yeah.
Terrence Steele is a pile of trash. I don't want you near my team ever again. He is an undrafted free agent that has been having to fill left tackle and right tackle consistently the last year and a half.
In fact, that's a big job to
He
be
allowed,
asked to
he allowed, I
into.
think, on his own. Oh my God, what's the stat? I'm almost certain. I think he on his own allowed 10 QB pressures in the Chiefs game. On his own.
I don't want to try and compare to other teams, but do you think that going back to what Mario said about is Dak worth the contract he was paid? Other quarterbacks have played better with way worse offensive lines than the Cowboys currently have, even with their terrible O-lines.
I would not for a moment put him in the same caliber as anyone like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson.
Well, Aaron Rodgers has an amazing O-line.
Whoever
steps up.
Yeah, but that's yeah.
I would not, even though he's getting paid that QB sort of money, I would not even put him close to what to their sort of caliber.
I was thinking more like Justin Fields though. Like he has a terrible O-line and he still managed to play well.
They're also very different players.
I understand that, but what I mean is it hasn't the fact that he's got a terrible O-line hasn't affected how with those adjusted stats hasn't actually. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't affected how good he is as a player.
Would you like the adjusted net yards per attempt between those 8 games to see the difference between? Because bear in mind that obviously, when did Amari Cooper get COVID?
This is the third. He's coming back. It was 2 games ago.
So he's been out for 3.
This would have been the 3rd game if he didn't come back for
Okay,
it.
so he missed 2 games.
I'm almost certain it's 2.
Okay, so what blew my mind is, and bear in mind that Justin Fields' adjusted net yards per attempt was 4.98. Right, and obviously he's a rookie, so we can't compare. We can't say this.
It's chalk and cheese.
But in the 4 games where you're 4-0. Dak's adjusted net yards per attempt for each game was 11.46, 12.18, 9.91, and 9.02. So that's an insane set of adjusted net. Because I cross-referenced that with a lot of other QBs. That's still good.
At that point, we were highest in yards per attempt as well. I think.
100%.
And is your O-line fully fit as well?
It was, apart from Lyle Collins, but we had Terrence Steele at right tackle, at which he's fine. Just don't put him at left.
But so in the last 4 games where you've been 1-3, his adjusted net yards per attempt, have not been terrible, but there's certainly been a drop. It's gone from 11.46 to 5.82. He had a 10.84, but that was the Falcons game where I think a lot of QBs would have thrived in that game. He had a 2.93 against the Chiefs, which was really poor, and then against the Raiders he had an 8.83. So in terms of it's his contribution, it's up and down, and I certainly think the key point with Dak Prescott is he's being paid like a Mahomes, like a Rodgers, and as much as I don't want to give Aaron Rodgers any more credit than he already gets, you only have to go back to the Cardinals game where we were down our 3 starting wide receivers, and he took a red hot Arizona team and we just and I mean, and in fact, the whole team and Matt LaFleur just bitch slapped them up and down that field.
What I would say about contract and money and that sort of thing is that I feel like any team who currently would have to pay, let's say Baker Mayfield gets his contract.
There's no way.
Let's say in a hypothetical world, let's say he gets his contract. He will get paid more. 100% he would get paid more than.
But the I get what you're saying, but the reality is like this.
That doesn't mean he's better. I'm not saying he's better.
I will eat my Green Bay hat on an episode for next year if Baker Mayfield gets a $40 million+ contract. There's no way.
My point being is that the NFL is in such a state of current being that worse QBs than Dak Prescott have the ability to get paid more than him. It's about the importance of the quarterback to that organization and what they can do with them. Baker Mayfield has done a decent job. I say decent, not good, because he has an amazing roster around him. And if he could get them to the playoffs, they would pay him over $45 million a year, 100%.
I don't think they will.
No, I don't think they will. But if he actually managed and did better than he's currently doing,
his playoff chances are still high, though. I still think, given what they've seen from Baker Mayfield, I don't think they're going to pay him.
No, I don't think they're going to pay him either. What I meant was if he was performing slightly better and getting them to playoffs regularly, I would say he would get more money than Dak Prescott.
I completely disagree. I think the Browns' front office seem very aware of the fact that Baker needs so much to remain productive that if he wants to stick around, he's going to need to take a hometown discount. And as much as I don't think it's as severe with Dak, I do think there's a similar element there with Dak, that he does need quite a lot for things to go well. And Dak didn't take a hometown discount. He received a hometown premium.
Yeah, he got paid more post-injury.
It's quite bizarre.
Yeah. We also have mismanaged our cap with regards to people like Ezekiel Elliott and
absolutely. I mean, Jerry Jones pays his boys, but
he
likes to make the news.
Yeah, he likes to flash the cash.
And I actually think it probably serves as a pretty effective brand strategy.
Yeah,
for Jerry. I don't think he's an idiot. But it makes the team worse.
I do think, it definitely does make the team worse. I do think that given the Cowboys' issues recently, the way we've played in terms of still focusing on a pass-heavy offense, passing the ball or like trying to throw the ball more than we try and rush the ball is a coaching issue. Is a coaching issue,
especially when you consider that. Like, I don't know the exact stat now, but Dak Prescott is either undefeated this season or period when
he's 29-0 or something like that.
That's when they rush for over 100 yards. When they rush it more than they don't. But I'm pretty certain I heard a stat the other day that it was like, I think they're 5-0 this season when Zeke rushes for 50 yards or more. Yeah. 50 yards or more. Like, so it's pretty insane.
All it takes, I know apparently Tony Pollard has been the league's best, I don't know if it's kick or punt return or one of the two.
At 100-yard kick return. So
even before that, apparently he was leading the league in terms of average return.
Oh, so that means that Dallas will have been leading the league in average field position start as well, which is also an underrated advantage in the game.
We used to be terrible at that. We're better at now. I would have just rather given return duties to someone else and given him more snaps at running back to combat the lack of O-line. I mean, our interior O-line is fine. Like, we've got our usual players there, Zach Martin, some other guy, Connor McGovern, I think is one of them. But I just think all three of the games that we lost were winnable. Yeah. Like, we kept the Chiefs to under 20 points. Like, I feel like
Broncos loss wasn't winnable.
The Broncos loss.
You were 30 points down.
That was
you made the scoreline respectable, but you were done. By halftime. I
would say it was winnable in the sense of if we did the right thing in terms of our offensive.
Yeah, I mean, Fangio turned up and just had a game plan that McCarthy had no answer for, which I really sympathise with, because I know exactly what that feels like when you're just like, change something, do something else. And I just, to the point where not that I don't have hope. Don't have hope. I mean, the final thing I'll say about Dak Prescott as well on the contract thing, and because I do get that it's like, it seems expensive now, but what you're saying is in time it will not seem expensive.
There will be worse players that will receive more money.
That's not to say that people haven't paid quarterbacks a lot of money and regretted it. I know Kirk Cousins is having a great season, but everybody who's paid Kirk Cousins regrets it, and that feels harsh saying that, but it's like they must do. Like, he hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
So like,
Well, they wanted to draft Justin Fields at 15.
Yeah, they took Kellen Mond, didn't they, in the second round?
They did take Kellen Mond, who I actually think when I thought the top quarterbacks in this draft weren't going to be available to Chicago, there was a lens in which I looked through in which Kellen Mond started looking pretty sweet to me. but yeah, I mean, Jared Goff's another one as well, just grossly overpaid, or at least he was.
And those poor Lions, man.
My last gripe, the final gripe. Ill discipline. Again, going back to management and kind of keeping a team in check. Why is Bill Belichick lauded and Tom Brady lauded for their sort of game management / their approach to the game? They hate it when people make mistakes. The last 4 games we played, these are penalty yards given. 38 against the Broncos. Okay, not bad. 80 against the Falcons. 64 against the Chiefs. Guess how many we gave up against the Raiders? 166. There were over 280 penalty yards in that game in total.
Yeah, and I know that because there was 900 yards of total offense in that game, but 250 which were penalty yards.
Yeah, and it's just like basic mistakes that I feel like we can fix up. Run the ball more in absence of wide receivers and O-line, and just cut out the mistakes. Defense has been fine. We've been getting sacks and we've been getting pressures and picks and that sort of thing. So
the final thing I want to ask you in this Cowboy Corner before we move on is, obviously we're recording on a Thursday Night Football, baby, and it's Cowboys Saints tonight. Saints are a hollow shell of themselves right now. They've got Taysom Hill playing with a foot injury. Alvin Kamara is supposed to be out. Michael Thomas hasn't obviously played out at all.
Simeon in, right?
No, you haven't. They've got Taysom Hill with a
with
foot injury.
Oh, right. What happened to Simeon? Is he?
I think they're just done with him.
Oh, fair.
Thoughts on the game tonight?
We should win. But I said that about multiple.
What was interesting from what I heard about other pundits talking about was when they were sort of about whether it's a must-win game or not, and people were like, obviously in the grand scheme of things, it's not a must-win because but so people said it's not a must-win game because you're in the NFC East, and also like if you lose, you're not going to, your playoff chances are still high. But I disagree with that because I think it is must-win because
I agree.
If Dallas don't get the number 1 seed, I reckon they're gonna. I know McCarthy, and I know that he struggles in the playoffs, and I know that I would worry that Dak away from home in a wild card game to have to then go from the wild card to Super Bowl would be difficult. 2, outside of that, Washington are 6-5. Or 5-6, something like that. Where it's like if you lose this game, there's a 1-loss difference between you and Washington, and you've got Washington twice in the next 3 weeks. You lose this game, Washington are going to be chomping at the bit to get a game with you.
I would say at least for momentum, and also what you just mentioned.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I think it's a must-win for me. 100%.
I was just going to say Washington's defensive front seven are now playing ridiculous.
Yeah, and Chase Young is out, but I think the rest of them are still fucking incredible.
And that doesn't bode well for your O-line.
Is anyone back? I don't even think Tyron Smith is back this week, which is the sad reality.
You want no part of ice cold Heineke as well.
Yeah, no, he's really good.
And just going back to your point about the number 1 seed, McCarthy does struggle in the postseason, but Dak also struggles against winning teams. Is something that we've seen.
Yeah, he does. It's not. I feel bad crapping on Dak because I do really like him. I just think that contract, it's either going to make him or it's going to be the death of him, and it'll be what he's remembered for. But anyway, we wish him all the best. And I hope our Iranian correspondent over at Jerry World can feel better in the coming weeks as we make a venture into the playoffs.
My tears fall into the Texan / Middle Eastern sand as we speak.
Okay, so Cowboy Corner, far behind us now, leaving Jerry World, sailing on into the power rankings, which unfortunately we do have to go back to our Iranian correspondent over at Jerry World because it is his turn.
Unfortunately, what?
But
we don't want to go back to Jerry World.
But I can't remember the good name for it. I don't know if you've got one for yourself, but we had Garrett's Grandstand, Tread Gold's Tears, and now we're having Chat Rize's Contenders.
Oh, very good. I hadn't thought about this.
My first thought was chosen by Chat Rize, but I wasn't sure if that came across. It was
Tread Gold's 10 as well, by the way.
Oh, it was a Tread Gold's was 10.
It sounds like a Marks and Spencer's food range.
Does
Chosen by Chat Rees.
This isn't just.
or a lifestyle blog.
It's like, this isn't just your Cincinnati Bengals.
Or maybe it's like, my brain is...
Top 10 ranked defense. Cincinnati Bengals with a prolific wide receiver.
You all laughed at me in my first week, my Gary's Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Number
Speaking
5
of
Bengals.
Chat Rees' chosen ones.
Contenders, but go on.
At number 10, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. Keeping them in the top 10.
They thumped the Steelers.
They thumped the Steelers, and their defense isn't awful. Their offense is comparatively worse. But I think they've got enough juice not to make playoffs necessarily, but just to keep things interesting.
Not in their division, I think. Because they've got the Ravens, the Browns. I mean, they might.
They've
might
got
finish.
better record than the Browns, I thought.
Yeah, I just think
Browns are 6-6.
And what are the Bengals?
I'm pretty sure they're 7 and. Can someone check this for me?
Bengals do not have 7.
I'm
wins.
almost certain they've got 7 wins.
No, because
I checked it earlier.
what? I mean, the
Bengals are 7-4.
Well, there you go. Smack my ass and call me a Cincinnati Bengal. All right, fine. Yeah, the 7-4 Bengals. Fair enough.
I'm so tired of people not taking the Bengals seriously.
I think
right?
I just feel
Just
like
ingrained in his psyche,
it
Nathan.
just to me
It's
that
the kids.
Yeah, it's bad, isn't it?
They look like kids.
also they don't have an indoor practice stadium, which in Cincinnati just feels cruel. Like, how much money do you have to just put aside? Do you know what I mean?
In Ohio.
That's what I mean. It's like
Probably slowed down
freezing.
Joe Burrow's return to fitness.
Joe, you would be back on the field if we had an indoor practice facility, but I'm afraid your knee will explode if you play in this weather. So you're out till preseason.
Oh, but yeah, thoughts at 10. I guess.
Yeah, I'm happy with the Bengals. I like Joe Burrow, man. Like,
I just think they should be higher.
Joe Burrow's
personally.
cool. He's a
They're
cool guy.
7-4.
But so you'll see all the rest
Yeah,
of the picks. At number 9, we have the Tennessee Titans.
fair.
Yeah, they are 8-3 still.
Schedule-wise, I get it.
8-4.
For me,
8-4, sorry. Yeah.
For me, I just think I just don't see them as a top 10 team now. 'Cause they're just getting worse and worse.
I still think they've got a little sniff, and I think they would beat the Bengals currently as of today. I would say
They're on a 2-game losing streak though right now.
Although their running back rushed for they had 200 yards rushing against.
whoever's replacing
Who was that?
Derrick
That
Henry
was
is
against the
doing a good
Patriots. They
job.
had 200 yards rushing. It was pretty
I just
nuts.
think they might start clicking again.
They could always call Frank Gore.
Well, they signed and released Adrian Peterson in a matter of 2 weeks.
Did they? I don't even know why. They did
signed to
that.
the practice squad, put him up for a game, and
Yeah,
then that
because you
guy.
know where he's at now?
Yeah.
The Seahawks practice squad. It's too late.
Any other thoughts on that?
Don't run like that. You'll ruin your career.
So my thoughts on the matter are that Tennessee at the moment are just treading water as best they can. If they can get Derrick Henry back, then
He's out for the season, isn't he?
He's not out for the season. There's a chance he can come back for the playoffs, but that would be the earliest, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
that's the only reason I'd have them in the top 10 is that there's a chance that if he can come back and get in some kind of run.
The only reason I had them in the top 10 is, and you'll see at the end of the list why. But Tennessee at 9.
Before you move on, the only thing I'll say about Derrick Henry is I agree that if he comes back, he obviously it's a completely different opinion I have about the Titans because I love Derrick Henry. I think he's insane. My thought is, let's say he comes back. Let's say they make the playoffs, right? It's unlikely they're going to get the 1 seed without Derrick Henry until then. So they have to go wild card. So he has to turn back. He has to turn in the wild card game and then take 30 touches a game again, after not playing for 9 weeks. I just think I would be flabbergasted if they got through that first game with him back with a win, depending on who they play.
You say that, but Derrick Henry's running style, he's not a running back who gets hit a lot because he takes the outside routes.
Yeah, he's an outside zone guy. So, but then who knows? But anyway, you're good, Nima, there?
Yeah, all good. Number 8, the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think they're on the ascendancy. Their record isn't quite there yet. They're, I think, 7-4.
Well, they have the same record as the Bengals.
same record as
But they're
Bengals.
on a 4-game winning streak.
And also, I just think they're currently hot. They've got a few players back in their secondary. I'm pretty sure.
The big one for them back on defense is Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Their defense has become. They can bring pressure again. That's
Jones.
That's who was back against the Cowboys.
Because Chris Jones was on the interior rather than as an edge rusher, and he was just destroying the ball.
Chris Jones was Dak Prescott's dad.
Yeah, he did. He kind of owned him that game.
Also, just as a random segue back to Dak Prescott, because I forgot to mention this stat.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is 10-0 without Devontae Adams. Patrick Mahomes is 4-1 without Tyreek Hill, and I'm pretty sure Dak Prescott is like 2-4 when he doesn't have Amari Cooper. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Move on.
That's a good start, to be fair. Number 7, the LA Rams. I still think they've got a little sniff. Great team, great roster. Cooper Kupp is in good form.
They're currently on a 3-game losing streak, though.
Yeah, and 3 pick sixes in 3 games. Do you reckon they're affected? Do you reckon the OBJ curse is real?
I hope it is.
And by curse,
Cold-blooded.
Just because I haven't seen a real life like sporting curse in front of me. Like it's what like
Did you not
the Madden curse.
what's the Madden curse?
Madden curse is if you make the Madden cover, then you are crap the next year. Although to be fair, Patrick Mahomes did end that. No, he didn't, because technically he lost that Super Bowl and then was bad for 7 games. So he had a little taste of the Madden curse.
Yeah, I mean, Red Sox sort of vibe. Is it the Red Sox had the curse where they didn't
Everton
win
are cursed.
They didn't win a World Series for like a century or something. Or
There's the curse of Babe Ruth. So when he left to go to the New York Yankees, they didn't win a championship for, I believe it's 83 years.
So I've never witnessed curses like that. So I'm hoping we get to witness the
curse of OBJ.
And by curse, I think I more meant like, do quarterbacks just feel an immense amount of pressure to factor him into the game? Because Cooper Kupp had his lowest targets per game in the last game against Green Bay, and he had 10, which obviously is still quite a bit. But do you know who else had 10? OBJ.
Yeah, I think they need to figure out a way to not spoon feed him and just make him. I just wish he didn't have to feel wanted.
Yeah,
it's just annoying.
In fairness, in his defense as well, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm just hating on someone because I want to. I think another thing with OBJ is that we make it sound like it's easy just to move from team to team to team and be if you're a superstar you should be great.
Still figuring out the offense.
Yeah, I think an important thing to remember with the Rams is that losing Robert Woods meant that they lost their over the numbers or inside the numbers wide receiver, because that's what he was really good at, and that's also what Sean McVay really likes to scheme for. And OBJ is almost exclusively an outside the numbers to the sideline wide receiver. So that in the same reason that Deshaun Jackson didn't work in LA, it's really interesting that they released him and then they were like, actually, do you know what? We'll get OBJ in anyway. It's just sort of like, I thought you got rid of that outside the numbers guy because you didn't he wasn't getting used.
Also, Woods was really good at blocking for screens and I guess
he's underrated, Woods, for that team. Anyway,
long may that losing streak continue.
Yeah, well, that's fine with me. I'm fighting for number 1 seed now.
And number 6, we have
Dallas lose tonight.
And number 6, we have the Buffalo Bills. Again, not much to add there.
Tre'Davious White is out. That's a big loss.
They're my
the season as well.
I'm rooting for the Bills now for the rest of the season.
I have a soft spot for the Bills as well.
Especially, have you watched we watched the documentary the other day, the ESPN 30 for 30.
I have not seen it yet.
It's
the four falls of Buffalo on Disney Plus. Really good.
Fully recommend it. It was very
Look
good.
up the kicker's name. Steve Norwood.
Steve Norwood.
Scott Norwood.
Scott Norwood. What a gracious man.
That man is carrying that missed field goal
so much
in
guilt.
his heart to this day. That was hard to watch him talk about that.
Yeah,
he was tearing up every time.
Shout out to Scott Norwood.
Wasn't your fault, man.
The buffalo wings, man, delicious.
Yeah, they are good.
So good.
They are good.
Blue cheese sauce.
Even like the vegetarian option, the cauliflower wings, are banging as well.
Yeah, that's actually a testament to how good the sort of the
is.
recipe for buffalo wings is that you can take out the meat and replace it with cauliflower, which is so boring, and it still bangs.
Really good.
God, also, a final fact about Buffalo, which again I learned today. How crazy is this? So, obviously on defense, you have different formations. You have 3-4, 4-3, 6-4, or whatever the hell the bloody Seahawks run. And then you've got
4-3 bear.
You got your 4-3. You got all different types of formations, right? And they all mean different things. The Bills, since like week 6, have literally only played in nickel, because apparently their slot corner, whose name escapes me, I apologize, is a really physical corner. So he means he's really good on running. He's really good on running plays. So they just run nickel all.
They're number
game.
1 defense so far this season. I'm almost certain they're number 1 ranked just overall.
Yeah.
I don't know if it not necessarily for yards or.
Do you reckon that's still the case with New England though? Because England had 4 turnovers in the last 2
might
games.
Be New England.
Oh really? Because I literally
at least
looked earlier.
from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, because I looked earlier. It was just like on the NFL website. It was just.
We'll have to do a fantasy thing next year for the podcast. I was thinking about that. I was thinking a pick.
That would be an interesting.
I was thinking a pick'em league would be really good as well.
Yeah.
So we all just do a pick'em league, and then whoever follows us can also take part in it, and we can announce winners each week.
That's a great idea.
Going back to before we move on from the Bills. I'm not going to talk about chicken anymore. I just wanted to say I think one of the reasons why I tend to have a soft spot for them is just one, I love the way they play. I love their offense. Their defense has been great as well. But we're talking about a team who made it to the Super Bowl 4 years on the trot and lost every single one.
And that's coming from someone who hasn't seen the 4 falls of Buffalo. Which is
91, 92, 93,
Cowboys back to
94.
back, baby.
We don't know pain like they know in Buffalo.
Yeah, honestly. And also, like, I think, it's as that documentary aptly points out,
that's why it's called that.
The 4 falls of Buffalo. It follows their 4 falls.
That took you a while there, Mary.
But yeah, as it aptly points out,
so
like
good.
to make it to 4 Super Bowls and lose 4 times in a row obviously sucks, but it's not something to be embarrassed about. Like, because no one has done it before, since. Like, they were also, I think nobody. They either were top 3 or they won more games in the 90s than any team. Other than like maybe Dallas, because obviously Troy Aikman. I think nobody won more games than Troy Aikman in the 90s. But it's like like Jim Kelly. That there's some Hall of Famers in that team and stuff like that. And fast forwarding to the modern day. You can't not like Josh Allen. Do you know what I mean? Like, I will say that actually currently I've got a sneaky feeling that I reckon Justin Herbert actually might be like a better version of Josh Allen. I know that feels a little bit premature, but just I don't know if I think maybe Justin Herbert's got a bit of a more level head.
Josh Allen gives me really like Big Ben vibes.
Yeah,
like
he's
Big Ben.
so Big Ben because
He gives me slightly more refined Jay Cutler vibes.
Yeah, that's also very
Not
fair.
an arsehole, Jay Cutler.
That's also very fair.
Classy Jay Cutler.
Yeah, because he's a beast. He's a unit. He throws an absolute. He's got a cannon of an arm.
Yeah.
The people of Buffalo deserve this team.
Yeah.
They've been through a lot.
And if anything, they deserve a slightly better one because the only problem I have with Buffalo is that they just Brian Daboll. Is it Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator?
That's right, Brian Daboll. Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering when you were like when you were picking up Buffalo. I was like, is this as a Bears fan being like, please leave Buffalo, Brian Daboll, please leave Buffalo, please leave Buffalo.
Well, actually, I still think Brian Daboll would be my front runner for the Bears head coaching job. Please, God, it's available. Because as Olin Kreutz, the all-decade left tackle for Chicago, recently said on air, someone needs to tell Chicago the truth. It really does seem like the front office think like things are kind of okay.
We have the same problem in Seattle. Literally the same thing.
I was sat there this morning thinking, it seems as if they actually think Matt Nagy has something to play for, and they're prepared to give him forever to play for it.
Yeah, and to that I'll say the only the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Chicago Bears. What do they have in common? The Lions took them both down to the wire, and if that's happening, something's not working. So you need to sort it out.
God bless the Lions, man.
God bless the Lions.
Anyway, sorry, we're getting distracted. The Buffalo Bills.
We're number 6.
They're number 6. Okay, cool. We're quite a good chunk of the way through this. I thought we were
Number 5.
Yeah.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay, yeah,
I think
a big win against the Colts. To be fair,
big win against the Colts. Brady is still number 1 QB in terms of his stats. Their defense is performing marginally better, I feel,
and they're still pretty injured as well. I think it's either Levante David or Devin White got injured in that game, and they also lost a corner in that game.
I think
as well.
one of their safeties or corners came back for that game. But I don't know if the same person went out.
No, someone else went out because it was Antoine
Whitfield that came back,
and he had that insane pick.
Yeah.
He had that insane
Wicked
interception
pick.
over Michael Pittman.
But again, Super Bowl curse, you never know. But at this point, Brady's been there so many times that I don't think it applies to him necessarily.
I don't think any curse applies to Tom Brady.
The curse of looking
Certainly
youthful.
not the curse of time, yeah.
Yeah.
Number 4, we have the Baltimore Ravens.
Ooh, interesting considering how reckless they play.
Reckless. I I really like him. I think this might be a personal pick of mine. I like
contenders.
I like how Lamar Jackson's played the season. I like how much better his passing game has become. Their defense has a lot of question marks over the last few games. Yeah. That I hope will be sorted. But also I think their running game kind of will help them out of it by just time and possession.
Lest we forget how many injuries as well they've had.
Yeah,
this is exactly what I was going to say.
Can I just put up another argument though, because divisional for the Bengals and the versus the Ravens, because they're obviously the same division. Like the Ravens have scored 240 points, right? The Bengals have scored 309 points. So the offense is obviously scoring more than the Bengals. But the one I found more interesting was points allowed. The Ravens have allowed 240 points, but the Bengals have allowed 226 points. So they've allowed less points than the Ravens have, and arguably a worse defense in the same division.
They also have the, what's that called, the tiebreaker, because they absolutely battered them when they played them. They put 41 points up against the Ravens. In fairness, like the main thing with the Ravens that we have to acknowledge is that like it's hard not to love Lamar Jackson.
Oh, he's so
It's
good.
hard not to love watching him play. I mean, I don't know if anybody saw the touchdown he threw against the Browns.
Oh,
where
yeah.
it was a 3rd and 10 on the Browns 20, and he ended up throwing a 37-yard touchdown to the end zone that was so good that Myles Garrett, who was blitzing him, shook his hand as soon as that ball was caught for a touchdown. Which, like, I just think, like surely mid-game, a defensive lineman is like, my whole process is getting in this QB's head, being like, I'm hunting this guy down. I've got to make him terrified of me for this 3 hours of gameplay. And he was so impressed with what he watched in real time.
Go against his one job.
Yeah, literally. It was him and Jadeveon Clowney chasing him down, and he just rolled in circles and circles and circles, and then just lobbed it, and then somehow Mark Andrews scored over a touchdown. And Myles Garrett was just like, yeah, fair play. That was phenomenal. And then what's funny is in the background of that, you can see Jadeveon Clowney taking his helmet off and like smashing it on the ground. So it was just like a complete polar opposite reaction.
I think it's really exciting to see someone like Lamar Jackson in the league. I agree. I wasn't saying that against the Ravens. I was saying that more for the Bengals.
Yeah.
But like the Ravens, like it's so good. Like I'm just getting hyped up on. Obviously, I don't agree with the things he's done off the field. But Michael Vick, like, and all the comparisons with Michael Vick, and we're watching. If anyone's seen SB Nation on YouTube, they do a documentary about the Falcons, and I'm now currently on the bit about Michael Vick and talking about him on like Madden and being sick, like running, like being unfair, and it's kind of cool to see. Like we had that with. We had that with Lamar Jackson, people being like, he's like the second coming of Michael Vick on the pitch, like not off the pitch, and his playing ability, but then being like questions about his throwing. And the same thing happened with obviously Michael Vick. Like people questioned his arm, but actually, like it wasn't whether his arm was good or not. It was he was so effective at running that he didn't bother to throw as much. And
he actually had an insane arm, Michael Vick, as well.
And I think what's interesting is Lamar Jackson, people have said his arm talent's not as good, blah, 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 this, blah, blah, that. But he's just proving time and time again that is completely false. And his arm is wicked. And he just can beat you in so many different ways. And it's just an absolute fucking pleasure to watch. Like
certainly as well, I think the best thing about this season for the Ravens, obviously I know they're 7-4 and they're still competing for a chance in the playoffs, is that one, like the best thing about Lamar Jackson for me outside of his, him as being this dual threat, and he's probably the most dangerous dual threat I've ever seen as a quarterback. It's also his attitude. He's never fazed by the set of the game. And with that Browns game, he threw 4 interceptions in that game and they won. And then the other thing what was the other thing I was going to say is that I can't remember what I was going to say about that. But yeah, I can't think what I was going to say. I like his attitude, basically, Nima.
Also, I want to make a point that my 4, 5, and 6, I think personally are interchangeable. Like I could it'll be a toss up between Ravens, Bucks, and Bills. I just like the Ravens. I think that's why I put them at 4.
Yeah, 100%.
Number 3, the Arizona Cardinals. I think their record is
they have to be top 3.
They have to be top 3. I still have questions about like their injuries, Kyler Murray coming back, etc., etc., etc.
I don't think it's mattered that much.
Yeah,
Colt
it's
McCoy
just how much,
slices
how much
up.
it
2
can
and
be
3.
sustained, and that's what it'll be interesting.
They're
to see
9-2, man.
how much it.
Well, they still have the best record in the NFL, which is insane considering that Colt McCoy has been like we haven't seen Kyler Murray since the Packers game.
Because they're just being like, you know what, Colt McCoy's playing well, and we can just let Kyler Murray get the injuries that he needs to heal up.
Also, certainly with Cliff Kingsbury, I feel like I have to finally retract my comments about me not being sure whether he can coach or not, because how he's made Colt McCoy and the Cardinals team feel almost unfazed without their starting quarterback and their number one receiver. My hat goes off to him. Like that is incredible.
And he's still young as well. His fourth year in the third year.
Well, yeah, there's a coaching job in college that people were saying he might.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, like I was like, why would you? For money?
He's not even necessarally disputing it either.
Yeah, that's what surprised me. Is I saw his name and I saw him being like, "Yeah, well, maybe I'll go to Oklahoma." And I was like, what?
That's a big college job. That like Oklahoma's huge.
It's not bigger than the NFL.
No, it's not.
It just sounds like he hasn't quashed the rumors or anything.
His His official response was, "For now, I'm just focused on the Bears. I forgot that we're playing them next." And I was like, "Oh, not Cliff Kingsbury."
For now, my sole purpose is to become the head coach of the Bears.
I had a really bad morning.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, the Cardinals at 3, because I think the team at 2 can easily beat them, and it is the New England Patriots on a 6-game winning streak. And I just think Belichick is the defense is firing. Mac Jones is comfortable. They don't have many injuries as far as I know. Their running game is incredible. Ramondre Stevenson, like for a rookie, he's doing such a phenomenal job of like just taking downs and he's like 250 pounds. He just fucking runs through people and just gains yards after contact. Yak him. Is it yak? Yeah.
Yak.
Yards
after catch.
Yaks it hard. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I get why a lot of Patriots haters would be annoyed that they're good again and they hate all things Patriots, but like I don't really care. And also I'm really big into the Belichick-Brady rivalry, and like I like that Brady's been really good and now Belichick is sort of coming through and he's created a good team. I'd love to see a Patriots-Bucks Super Bowl, but not this year because I think the Packers have the best chance they've ever had, so I really want that to happen for me, please. But what can't you like about New England? Maybe Mac Jones isn't as like eye-catching as like a Mahomes or something like that, but he doesn't put a foot wrong. Josh McDaniels is still in my mind the best offensive coordinator in the game, because even though he plays boring football, it always works when you got the right pieces in there. Kendrick Bourne, incredible signing in free agency. Their defense, J.C. Jackson. Is he the best corner in the league? I don't know. Like he's so good.
Do you think Josh McDaniels is going to take a head coaching job?
I would potentially say yes, but he has already done that. He in like 2011 he went to Denver and was bad, and then he's come back to New England. So I don't know if maybe a bit like Matt Patricia, he just went, you know what, like I'm part of the Patriots dynasty, and I would rather have multiple rings as an OC under Bill than move to head coach job. I don't know. I don't know the wants and the desired trajectory of a defensive coordinator to head coach. And if you've already been one and been bad, I don't know, but their special teams is always good. So yeah, it's the game on Monday. We'll really know how good the Patriots are because the Bills are back in form. Yeah. I think it's a really dynamic quarterback. It's not a young quarterback. It's not a Baker Mayfield. It's not a Ryan Tannehill where it's sort of like, maybe if you can expose them, they're not as good as they seem. It's like Josh Allen is definitely good. Sean McDermott is a really good coach. That team is really, really good. So they beat the Bills. I would be like, it's them and the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game for me. Now, I don't see anybody else in the AFC competing, but if they don't, then maybe people will come back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, Patriots, big fan. Number 1, Green Bay Packers. Which means the Cowboys do not make my top 10.
Which is,
I think so too. Yeah, yeah. We might beat the Saints, but I don't think. Yeah. Anyway, to the Packers. I just think the fact you have lost so many pieces, but still nailing teams to the cross is insane.
You know what's coming.
Well, we're on
NFC Championship loss.
Probably. But we're on a bye week, so at least the curse will be pushed back a week. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier. I mean, I like
to say you had your doubts at the start of the season as well, with the backdrop of everything.
Yeah, I was like, I think after this first game, it was easy to I'm not the kind of Packers fan that we get thumped once and I'm like, that's it, our season's over. Obviously it was like it's game one. I don't like, and certainly Aaron Rodgers lobbies for veterans to not play at all in the preseason, and I watched all the preseason. We didn't play anybody of any worth in the preseason other than Jordan Love. So, we weren't. They were always going to be. It basically felt like a fifth preseason game, wherever it was. But yeah, we've never really been known for good defense. I wasn't sure about Joe Barry. I was skeptical in the beginning, especially after the first couple of games, and then we started getting more injuries. And I was like, well, even if he is good, how good is he? Because he's going to be playing with a third of this team. And if anything, it's only made me think we have our coaching staff now. I love the way that Matt LaFleur designs offensive plays.
Fantastic
I love our offensive coordinator. I love Joe Barry. I'm almost, and again, I'm not willing this, I'm almost a little bit interested because the thing I'm worried about next year is we have a cap issue and we have to, when Devontae Adams needs a new contract, right? And let's say that the goal is to keep Aaron Rodgers because obviously
what I was going to ask you is, do you think this is, if you don't win the Super Bowl, Aaron's gone?
I don't. The thing is, my question now is, last season, I would have said yes in a heartbeat. Now, given the coaching staff and what the team has been able to do without, our best corner, our best pass rusher, our front seven dipping in and out with terms of injuries, our O-line, as good as it is third string. We haven't had Bakhtiari all season, and Elgton Jenkins is another Pro Bowl interior lineman. He's now out for the season. He was injured for 6 games before that anyway. So we're still playing a backup O-line. If we can keep Devontae Adams, I would be skeptical about a landing spot for him where they wouldn't have to give whatever it was about them that made them good back to us in terms of pick or capital to get him to come there. So, and also he is invested in being a one club player. So we'll have to see. I don't know. I'm not adamant either way, but I would hope that we could keep him. And on that thread, if we're going to keep him, we have to keep Devontae Adams. And we don't have the cap for that right now. But going back to Joe Barry, he's coached our defense so well that part of me is like, if there's any big defensive name players coming up, maybe some of what we've done this season is like, maybe we don't need these players as much as we thought we did. And I certainly would prioritize keeping Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams' relationship intact over, say, someone like, as great as it sounds, someone like Zadarius Smith. He's been out pretty much for the whole season. And yes, we would have been better with him, but we've generated some the best pass rush I've ever seen as a Green Bay Packers fan, ever. Better than the Super Bowl year. I didn't even watch that year.
And there's always defensive ends and or linebackers in the draft as well. Like next year, there's a few good ones.
And I have to shout out Devondre Campbell. That was, we made one free agency signing, and it was him, and he has been so good. I just love him. He's so good.
So Jair Alexander's contract's going to be up soon. He was drafted in the 2018 draft, so
there's a lot
either
of good
next year or the year after.
Year.
My maths is terrible, even when I
was he a first rounder? Because if he was, then you'll have the fifth year
to defer it. I mean, I love corners, and I'm never going to be one to be like push cornerbacks out. And to be honest, that is the position where I'm glad he's coming back, because Eric Stokes has really impressed me.
So good,
he's been really, really good, and so has oh my god, what was his name?
Kevin King?
No, obviously not.
Kevin King's a free agent.
Rasul Douglas, the practice squad player we picked up from the Cardinals. He has been surprisingly good. He made a pick 6 against the Rams. He had that game-ending interception against the Cardinals. But unfortunately, for a Super Bowl, we need Jair, 100%, no question. And I'm glad we're getting it back this year.
Top 2 corner.
Hypothetically, if you said, look, the contract, if I was sat in that boardroom and they were like, look, we can either keep Devontae Adams or we can keep Jair Alexander. As much as I would hate to lose Jair, I'm keeping Devontae Adams 10 out of 10 times in that scenario, because it just, the ecosystem of the offense is going to thrive so much more. And we've proven that he's not currently as pivotal as he used to be. He will make our defense when he comes back that much better. I'm not disputing that at all.
You can draft depth as well to go underneath Stokes.
Joe Barry's scheming is next level. That's the only difference. We didn't add anybody on defense apart from Devondre Campbell. So,
and the reality is Aaron Rodgers just really doesn't trust anyone else.
And it's so apparent. I don't know how he makes it work, because you think about people talk about Baker Mayfield forcing it to OBJ, and Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp having this, this intense relationship where it's like, they say don't have an overly reliant relationship with the wide receiver, but for some reason they just understand each other.
Telepathic.
I mean, I was watching Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show, and he was talking about that they're at a point where Devontae Adams, on almost every play, can pretty much decide what route he's on. That's how good their relationship is, because Aaron Rodgers will just look and go, oh, he's running at this, and then he'll just throw it, and then he'll come after him after the play, because he made a joke about in the Rams game where obviously Jalen Ramsey's on Devontae Adams all night, and it was like he ran like he was saying like I expected him to run a post pattern, but he actually ran like an outside corner route or something like that, which Aaron Rodgers was like, in that moment it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I threw it and I hit him anyway, and he came to the huddle and I was like, what made you pick that route? That didn't make a lot of sense to me. And apparently Devontae Adams was like, I just like my matchup, man. Do you know what I mean? I just felt like I had that guy in my pocket. Like obviously just crapping on Jalen. Yeah, it's like the best career. But then even Aaron Rodgers faked him out on the goal line. That was nuts,
the memes generated from that.
I love watching Jalen Ramsey just get his taste of his own medicine, or not even a taste of his own medicine, just getting tormented on the football pitch because of the amount of torment he brings everyone else.
I was say, what's his season even look like from a perspective of these incessant, ridiculous taunting calls that have been
surprisingly mild.
I was going to say, how is Jalen Ramsey coping?
Yeah, I mean, he got one taunting call where he got I think it was a bit unjust. I think he got up, and as he got up, someone was running into him, and he sort of body checked them. But it was because it looked like he was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to fall back over. And he got done for a taunting call. But other than that, I haven't seen anything.
Because I mean, I follow an Instagram account called Mic'd Up, and watching all of his compilations, and it's mostly just him speaking about people's mothers mid game.
Yeah, he's got an attitude problem. But no, yeah, I appreciate you putting them number one. I'm really glad it's the bye week, so I can't get my comeuppance for that. Also, just to back up your point, Nathan, about how good our O-line is regardless of who's in. So the Rams D-line is Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and then they've also got an edge rushing linebacker who's also really good. All of them had the exact same stat: 1 QB pressure each, no sacks. It was the other defensive tackle that got a sack, and it was a sack for a loss of 0.
It's yeah. I mean, and the perfect comparison, Dak against the Chiefs, he had 15 total pressures and 5.
But that's coaching. That's coaching. I the Green Bay. I've always been fortunate. Green Bay have always drafted O-line low, and they've trained them into just elite players.
And also, offensive choices, a bit more run, a bit more play action probably might protect Dak a bit better than just straight up.
Well, Aaron was saying that
throwing.
Well, Aaron was saying that and this is where LaFleur and McCarthy. Again, I don't know what McCarthy's strategies are, but the main difference was that the first thing that Matt and Aaron decided when the Rams were coming was they were like, it's Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald, and Von Miller on the defensive line. I don't want to hang on to the ball for very long because I will get sacked. So let's just not do that. So they just scheme the whole gameplay around outside runs, quick passes, screens, underneath stuff, just to avoid the pressure. 3-step drops, keep it away from them.
That brings a defense in, and you can hit them over the top.
I don't know what his adjusted net yards per attempt were, but I'm sure they were good.
And the only thing keeping the Cowboys out of the top 10 for me was obviously the record, but plus coaching. I just don't think we're as well coached as many of the other teams in the top 10.
Would you like to see what do you want to happen to McCarthy? If let's say you make the playoffs and you're one and done.
That would be great. I would love to see Kellen Moore as head coach. He's a great offensive coordinator. He's really clever. I don't know if he's ready for it. Because I have no idea.
Young, isn't he?
Yeah, I have no idea if he's ready for that. It's hard to tell. I have no idea what requires someone to be cool, I'm ready for this position now.
Also, I just don't know the differences between a head coach and an offensive coordinator in terms of responsibility. Obviously, I know that the offensive coordinator designs the offensive and makes the offensive play calls, but what's the day-to-day for a coach look like?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? What other stuff off the field are they responsible for? It's just because they're a good OC doesn't mean they're going to be good at that. And to be fair, Mike McCarthy has been questionable with some of his that whole watermelon thing was a bit hit and miss.
Yeah.
Although that was I felt like that was I don't know. I can't comment because obviously it's nothing to do with me. It was certain players found it offensive. So if they find it offensive, then it was offensive.
It was none of the Cowboys players. I think it was commentators.
No, it was no. I think it was. I think Demarcus Lawrence say he found that. Basically,
no, he was. I think he was talking about it and he was laughing about it.
Oh, fair.
So yeah, I think there was. None of the
as long as someone plays the problem.
I think it was Shannon Sharp.
I remember pundits going through him for a shortcut, but like. What it was in the hotel before a Vikings game as a motivational tactic. Mike McCarthy basically just kept putting like watermelons with like Dalvin Cook's face on it, and then was bringing players up to like smash the watermelon to like get hyped with it. And there was discussions about whether the sort of the tenuous link sort of like the stereotypical link of watermelons black players.
Right. Yeah, the sort
of like tenuous is not the word I meant because obviously I know that's quite a big stereotype that people find offensive. And I don't know I didn't hear any players comment about it.
Yeah.
I just remember the media not liking it, and then the monkey butt itching powder stuff thing was. That was a more recent one. That was after the Denver loss, and it was like he put like a big picture of this like known like itching powder that's supposed to help like soothe like I don't know troubled anuses, and
what?
And he's like I know all of you went to Walmart and bought this the other day because that's how we feel, and we're going to change our attitudes as of today.
What?
And obviously the pundits just like that is lame. That's a lame PowerPoint presentation.
I just think Mike McCarthy. I mean, people talk about his time management and his sometimes his play calling and his some of his choices are a bit suspect, but. Like I think he's a good man manager. Like I think he's a good motivator. Not because of the watermelon incident. But I just think there are better people out there.
Anyway, Green Bay number 1, chat raters contenders. We'll have to see how they do. Hopefully Green Bay don't get worse now, as everybody who we've put number 1 has done so far. The inside the 5 curse. We'll have to see if it remains. We've got one more segment, and then we are done. It's just a quick one. It's just an updated MVP. I can go first because the main thing I feel is that like it's the closest MVP race ever. Not because it's like it's so good and it's so close. Because actually like for some reason I don't care about the MVP this year, which is why my updated MVP is Derrick Henry because he's been out since week 8 and he's still second in rushing yards.
I'm gonna get Tom Brady because he leads in getting QB stats.
It just seems like because it's just like he has the most yards and touchdowns, so that makes sense.
I was tempted to go for Aaron Rodgers, but I'm actually going to go for Tom Brady. 3,403 yards, 30 touchdowns, 103.1 rating.
I mean, the passer rating, that's a good rating, to be fair to him.
That being said, 105.5 for Rodgers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think people said his MVP race was done from the whole immunized lying thing, but like he is playing well, and as you heard on the last episode, I was happy to tear him down, but I can't deny he's playing so well. He is so good.
He is.
I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins. I think I'm just going to give him the shout out I think he deserves.
I thought I was considering him as well. I just thought the Vikings record might.
But it's not about the record. Yeah. It's about who is the most valuable player. And in the village, it's. I can even say individually. I can
in the village.
In the village, I really struggled.
Who's the best player in the village?
The Viking village. I think it's the award that doesn't matter about record. It's about individual performance.
So would you say that if his record was better than Brady's, but he didn't make the playoffs, that won't make a difference?
Wait, sorry.
So if his like touchdowns and yards ended up being close or better than Brady, the fact that one team goes to the playoffs and the other doesn't won't make a difference.
Well, doesn't the whole team? That's about the team as well, though, right? Because if the individual stats are really similar, but one team goes to the playoffs and one team doesn't, that's not his fault because he's still putting in the stats that need to win.
Some people might argue he didn't do well enough to get them to the playoffs. Exactly. It's me asking the question.
The question is MVP. Who is the most valuable player, not who is the most valuable team.
Yeah.
And if you're asking who a valuable player is for a team, obviously Kirk Cousins is that player for the Vikings.
Well, that's interesting you said, because I was about to say
Dalvin Cook.
Who would you rather lose forever from the Vikings? They're like Kirk Cousins or Justin Jefferson? Or who would you want for the next 5 years? Kirk Cousins or Justin Jefferson?
Do you lose the cap hit as well?
Yes, I have to factor that in.
I'd rather lose to Kirk Cousins.
I would rather lose Kirk Cousins.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about MVP. My MVP choice is Kirk Cousins. So
it's subjective. It's subjective. It was just. I was just thinking about Kirk Cousins then because I was thinking that Baker gets criticism for being in a stacked team and not playing that well, but it's like the Vikings have Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. Their defense has been their defensive line has been really good this year, and obviously he is playing well. So I completely get that.
It was more me asking, would that change people's opinions?
23 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 3,013 yards.
It was more of like, will people's opinions be changed or their choices be changed based on whether or not the Vikings make the playoffs?
In reality, yes, because the thing we're all failing to forget with the MVP races is actually not about who is the
personality
MVP.
Contest.
It's personality contest, and also who plays best at the end. Because again, it's just about how the last 5 games look. It's just like, did you light it up in the last 5 games? You're probably going to win it.
And the public perception of Kirk Cousins is that he can't do it in prime time. So
he's smart. He's done that. He's proved that wrong this season as well.
Yes.
So
as the importance of the games sort of increase over the season,
we'll see.
We will see what he's made of.
No,
and if we
definitely
like that.
No, I definitely. But
nice.
I'm just saying, as it stands, I'm just giving him the shout out I think he deserves, because he's not going to get it from the media because no one likes the Vikings. He's not going to get it from anyone else,
and he's not going to get it from me.
And I don't even like Kirk Cousins either. He's playing really well. He knows ball right now.
He does know ball, and you know what? And if you heard, he's a nice guy as well, from what I've heard. So, and maybe if you had this podcast, he would consider that we know ball, and if he did, that might change my mind. But until that day, I'm afraid we're going to have to end the podcast here, lads. It's been an absolute pleasure. Mario, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mario.
For all those that have made it this far, this is officially our longest podcast to date. We've been trying to make it shorter month by month, and we have failed in greater and greater fashion, to the point where I don't even know if it's any point trying to make it shorter anymore, because I do just enjoy talking about NFL. And if you've enjoyed listening and you want to hear more, then feel free to follow us on all our social media at Inside the 5, the number UK. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Podbean, although we don't do absolutely anything on there other than post podcasts. So feel free to reach out and engage with us. And for all of us here at the Inside the 5 team, have a wonderful day, week, month. We'll see you in the come playoffs, where we might have some more tricks up our sleeves. We'll have to let you know close to the time. So have a good one, guys. Peace out.
Thanks, bye.
Ciao.